Councilor Hefner.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Prowse, I'm really looking forward to become a part of our little city. Thank you.
Looking forward to thank.
Yes, Mr. Prowse, we do have a citizen that wants to say from Seneca. Thank you and welcome.
Ben Martinez from Seneca. Just want to welcome you as our city manager. I want to thank the council. I know what you've been through. The mayor and I have both been through that before. Crystal, our acting city manager, in my opinion, she is doing a fantastic job. And Mr. Perales decides to fully retire, that she would be really consider taking the reins of the city as city manager officially. I think she would be excellent at that position. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, anyone else? Yes, Mr. Mata. Mr. Perales, you will soon learn that we have a very active, engaged community that loves to communicate to the council. So thank you. Mr. Mata, if you'll continue, please.
Eric Mata, Canterfield. Just wanted to say to Mr. Perales, after a pretty tumultuous last couple of 2 years, it was refreshing to hear all the positives and accolades from the council in regards to your interview. And I think as the citizens, we don't expect the council to agree on everything, but it seems like they were pretty unanimous in choosing you. So really look forward to your experience, your expertise, to this continued time of healing that we need here. So feel pretty confident in all that we've heard about you that you're the guy. And look forward to meeting you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mata.
Citizens to be heard.
Yes, Councilor Ross, go ahead, another comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Real quick, what Mr. Martinez was saying, the opportunity to speak with Edison, he's one of his main goals, and we're talking about the staff, and he says, my main objective is to make the staff. So, what Mr. Martinez said about advancing our staff, that's one of his main goals, and we appreciate that.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. All right, we have another citizen who would like to make a comment. Jaller from, I think, Mr. Miller, are you from Shirts?
I'm from San Antonio, Mayor.
San Antonio. Okay.
Jack Miller, San Antonio. That's okay. We'll get it. Totally cool.
I should
Shirts.
have stopped at Jack Miller.
Shirts is cool. Shirts is cool.
Anyway, thank you. Go ahead, please.
My group, my colleagues have done our due diligence with your new city manager to be soon. We have dug and dug and dug, because that's what we do. We dig. We scrape the surface. We try to find a reason to pass and move on to somebody else, because we don't want problems here. And I'm glad to report that very qualified, this guy. Extremely qualified. We all know that. We have not been able to find any dirt whatsoever. Justin Pulliam called me and said, man, you need to let city council know that there was a questionable shooting in his city. And I told Justin, I'm like, dude, you're not being very fair. Okay, he's not a cop. He wasn't there. He didn't pull the trigger. I'm sure he played no part in that decision at the time. You just can't hold him responsible for that. He didn't agree. I called him an asshole, and that was it. Because that's what he was, saying something like that. So anyway, I'm just letting you know, I'm sticking up for you. Good choice in city manager. It's a good sign. Thank you.
Okay, that was the first read, so we will have the second read at the next April 20th meeting and adopt that contract. All right, moving on to agenda item 10.2. We have an ordinance. Ms. Postlev, if you'll please read that. And we also have a public hearing on this agenda item.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Leon Valley, Texas, amending Chapter 15, zoning code allowing short-term rentals in certain residential zoning districts, mobile food units in non-residential zoning districts, permanent makeup, aka cosmetic tattooing in non-residential zoning districts, restaurants in the B1 zoning district, and gymnasiums. Is that a typo? Gymnasium? I've never seen it spelled that way. Gymnasium.
Gymnasium.
Is that spelled right? Okay, physical fitness facilities in the B2 zoning districts, providing for repeal or severability and savings clauses, and providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you. Good evening and welcome.
Mayor,
Uh-huh.
thank you, Mayor and Council. Okay, so, these are a lot of potential code amendments tonight, so I'm gonna do my best to be brief. We did this in an hour and a half in the Planning and Zoning Commission, so that's the point of P and Z, is to go into more depth and keep it higher level for you guys. And so, these code amendments, and some of these are kind of a backlog of code amendments that, as planners, we see it, we're like, okay, it sort of makes sense to address, but if there has any customers who are saying, hey, will you help me out with it? So,
Is the screen black again, guys? If this happens again, I'm just gonna kill the stream and let me know if the screen is black.
With that,
See if they let me. See before they let me go.
we talked about this, but so this is gonna kind of a new thing for everybody. Specific action proposed.
So is the screen black? I don't know what's going on.
Code definition.
I think it's because my battery got low. I would consider that.
Per the underlying zoning district, in the overlay personal,
How long do you think till citizens to be heard?
It's
gonna be a long time.
They're skipping things.
In that planning room, the land
How long do you think?
Think like 45 minutes or something.
Okay, so I can go out and smoke.
Yeah.
Fuck, dude.
But you want to be in from the red light camera, right? The agenda item on the red light cameras. So
If I can think of something else to say about it.
text you. I just wanted to wait till the item. I had stuff to say,
I'm trying to think.
especially in response to that woman that got up and said, "I was part of the Citizens Advisory Board."
Yeah, I think I said what I needed to say.
She's a total bootlicker, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think I said what I needed to say.
You probably did. Yeah, you probably did. If I can think of anything, I'll text you.
I know
So the key there is
Will.
not required to be on
We're listening very closely.
it has to be for more
See where
You
you
ran on that shit, dude.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. That's true. Just because, you see, they're trying to turn it into an issue about the funding or defunding of the police. It has nothing to do with that. I mean, it really doesn't.
I know what I'm saying.
So here's the proposed definition. This is kind of what most cities are using. They all adopt the same thing. I think this is also the definition of council. When he talked about it.
Anyway,
When took this to the planning and zoning commission, they asked this definition was good, except for one thing they wanted to add to it, where sleeping or intermittent connected for a period of 30 consecutive days.
I can tell.
So again, residential dwelling unit, department of planning and work that they're doing, may or may not be on or lease the occupied.
Yeah. Residents in the various neighborhoods are like, why is it we don't see cops monitoring the neighborhood? We don't see them going through. We have crime left and right, people's cars being broken into. No cops at any of the intersections.
Taking registration process, and these flying registration basically, that when the loader doesn't have a registration, they have to quit this. That's the way you do it with that breakfast.
Did the gimbal run out of battery?
But there's also, there's different degrees of, some cities hire third-party monitoring. People becoming millionaires off of it now. Logging rent, post-compliance.
This is the VRBO and the Airbnb.
So they, VRBO, what they do is they're like real estate control. They're like real production. That's where you go to find government agencies that are wanting to regulate that. It's a lot of work for their agencies that go out and track VRBO, and they.
Okay, you're not the gun-toting guy. You are? Well, you don't have your gun? Okay, why not?
Because I came straight from, no, I came straight from training.
Okay, I'm totally programmed. I don't give you a hard time about wearing a gun. I mean, you're an easy target because you know you're a fireman, but I get what you do.
Police officer.
I know. You fire chief, right?
Fire marshal.
Fire marshal. I get it. That's what I was gonna say. You're in a law enforcement capacity. I get it. I totally get that. But you're just
Single amendment to support the,
you know.
the planning and zoning commission voted to recommend the,
That's
short-term rental permit in the
because it's
RT
fun.
district.
It's fun. It's just poking fun. No worries.
Hey, Jack,
Yeah.
That agenda item could come out probably in
So,
possibly like 15 minutes actually. See, because look, he's right here. You're the next one
This is quick.
on the Southwest Texas Regional Advisory Council emergency thing.
And
So that might be even
it's red
worse.
lights. Okay. Ah, man. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's cool. No problem. I've never seen her face.
They don't allow anything.
I don't know if I've ever seen her face. I didn't know, Orozco walked past my car today and I didn't know it was him. I've never seen his face either. Now I
He's
see.
just to the right of Will.
Now I see his face, yeah. But he looked different out there when he was walking in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's a good guy. He's got like family that's SAPD or something. I think he understands the idea of good versus bad police.
Nah, he's here to, he is here to give a presentation or talk about something. It's gonna be that right there. The fire chief is here. He's got something to say to the city council. They were like, is he expecting a fire to break out at every city council meeting? If I put him on the video, everybody's like,
Oh, he's always at these meetings.
yeah, they give him a hard time. They just give him a hard time, that's all.
How many people you have watching?
Huh?
You have a good amount of viewers?
Well, I had
Holy
like,
cow, you have
I had
1,200
like,
people?
I had like, yeah, I had like 800.
You have 1,230 people.
Where?
Isn't that the number there? Oh, no, that's
No,
that's
that's
the
the time.
countdown on the time. Okay.
That's
okay.
how many people.
So you have, okay.
I was up to 800 and something, and then my fucking stream went down. And then I got up again, and then it was some type of black screen because my battery went down. So it went into low power mode.
Patrick called you and your phone went off. It wasn't on silent. So I grabbed it real quick. The tripod and brought it out here because it was disrupting.
Yeah.
So I realized it was a phone call. So I fixed phone call.
I fixed that problem.
Okay. I turned off your ringer too. I opened up.
Yeah, that, and then, so I have them as emergency contacts, so they'll ring the phone no matter what, and I forgot about that. I just turned off.
What's Patrick calling you about?
Who knows? Patrick's probably calling me to beg for a new phone or some shit.
He's pissed off. Is he pissed off with Justin?
Hey, Patrick, stop calling me. Don't call me until you pay Justin money back for bonding your dumb ass out. Patrick was calling me, and that was interrupting my live stream, but I fixed that. But y'all need to call Flood Patrick and tell him to not be calling Jack until he pays Justin his $200.
I would be interested in the cheap usage of homes and demographics around our city and our country. This is something that is not in demand.
Patrick got arrested again. Now he don't have no phone and no friends.
And you open up the zoning code to allow citizens to use this.
So you had a pretty productive conversation with Gonzalez?
Yeah. Oh, right there. It was good. It was good. He did good. There's the real Benny Martinez. The real Benny Martinez.
Sir, please put your mask back on.
They're saying, damn, she's fine, but I don't know if they're talking about Sandra or you. I know, I make everybody feel uncomfortable. I know. They said the real Benny.
I'm sorry, Councilor Stevens.
This is City Hall, yes.
Benny, they're saying you look high as hell. Someone said you look high as hell.
Said, Benny looks high as hell, they said.
He is from New Mexico.
Wait,
Do any drugs.
hey, try this one. Hey, try that on. Exercise.
Don't do any drugs.
Stand up straight, Benny. Oh, wait. Stand up straight, Benny.
There's some crazy people, huh?
Yeah, they make jokes. They're funny. They're funny.
They're funny.
I would format it from the perspective of what's the relationship to Leon Valley and Code?
Benny is stoned on life.
Terminology regulations. They have terminology regulations.
They said, pie eyes like a mofo. Hey,
In fact, I need to,
Benny can hear all this.
in fact, I need to, my eye doctor suggested I do go to a doctor and get there's some surgery they can do to fix it.
See, it's a medical problem. Now how do y'all feel? Now how small do y'all feel?
I've never been to.
And Larry Irwin, if you want to hear them talk about fluoride in the water and pat each other on the back, go to the real Justin Pulliam and watch it on there.
On my mom's side of the family, they used to call my grandmother shrimp eyes.
Now, supposedly there's a very simple procedure.
Somebody said
To fix it.
medical marihuchi.
What does that mean? Medical what?
Medical marihuchi. Marijuana and hooch. Medical marihuchi.
That's a crazy name.
That's a good one. Who's gonna run a dispensary in Leon Valley?
We're not Colorado.
I'll open up a dispensary. I'll call it Smokin' Joe's.
Which one?
Blackmore.
I don't know. Blackmore just kind of.
I said that I would cause Blackmore to leave within 15 minutes. He actually lasted for 30 minutes. The last council meeting he left.
Catherine or Evan are listening, and they're gonna let him know.
I really don't care. Well, who, the doctor?
They're gonna go reporting back to everyone.
Oh my God, the doctor. And where is Evan at anyway?
Can you believe what they said?
I've been taking video of everybody's shoes, and Evan didn't even show up. I was gonna take a video of his shoes too. Mr. Red Shoes, yes. Smoky Joe's Metahuchi Dispensary. Okay, I'll go back inside so y'all can hear the meeting.
But the no doesn't mean it's explicitly not allowed, it's just sometimes not addressed.
That's why.
Again, in my experience, the zoning code does not specifically address use that means it's not allowed.
Okay, okay.
Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Just to follow up on that a little bit, that, in terms of Leon Valley, it says no short-term rental, bed and breakfast are okay, boarding. So, as far as you're concerned, that means in Leon Valley right now, we're not allowed to have like Airbnbs.
That is correct. Again, when I got here, again, it's a hot topic, so, and I got calls on it, so I had to look at this and ask the city attorney's feedback. I'm like, okay, the way I'm reading this is a bed and breakfast, you have to live there, and it has to be less than 30 days. And with a boarding home, you don't have to live there, but it has to be more than 1 week. And so I'm seeing a gap in my head, and I'm like, okay, well, what about stuff where places where you don't live there, and you want to do it for less than a week? And that means the code doesn't address that, so that means it's not permitted. And I think a lot of codes, a lot of zoning codes were created in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and a lot of them look the same. you know, and they've got these same terms in there. And so a lot of people they're probably talking to their city attorneys, and their city attorneys are saying the same thing, is that if you're concerned about this, maybe an attorney's gonna find a gap, maybe it'll get challenged, but if you really wanna directly address this, you need to hit this term, short-term rental, head on and define it, and define what you want and how you wanna regulate it, because right now you're not addressing it at all.
Go ahead.
Just one follow-up question. Is there any thought, I mean, I'm not saying I'm opposed to Airbnbs and so forth, but just one issue is like the street I live on, if there were like 12 Airbnbs, that might impact some aspects of the life on the street. Is there any looking into that or considering?
Absolutely. I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head in terms of what the concern is, and that's one element, I mean, bed and breakfast is somebody lives there, if there's a party the night before, you can always go to your neighbor and say, hey, what the heck was up with last night? And if you keep this up, I'm gonna call the police. And so you have that relationship, but when it's not owner occupied, then it's potentially a company owning it or anything. And so it has, there's, all these decisions have a consequence to the character of the neighborhood and things. So I think you're hitting right to the essence of the dialogue.
Okay, so there will be a limit then of how many short-term
Okay.
rentals will be in like a subdivision, or no?
No, ma'am, as presented right now, there won't be. And again, so
Okay.
that's why I
So
want to bring
that
this to you
wouldn't
guys.
address your concern then?
So this is, this is, Councilor Hefner spoke at the Planning and Zoning Commission. As he spoke, this is something that he's passionate about. And so it's my role to, the council gives me guidance to bring something to y'all and send it through the processes and bring it out here for
Okay.
dialogue. So those are definitely things as y'all discuss that, and that's why I'm your resource for if you've got concerns and you want to look at more restrictions, then I can go to work and see, okay, what, San Antonio does the tiers. So probably of all the cities I've seen, San Antonio digs in the most in terms of differentiating between whether or not it's owner occupied or if it's not, and then there's additional restrictions that San Antonio applies for the uses that are, I keep forgetting I can take my mask off here. They go in a little bit deeper on the tier 2s, which are not owner occupied, and so there's some frontage requirements and distancing requirements there.
Okay, yes, Counselor.
Sure.
Edwards, go ahead.
Sorry I don't want to beat this
No.
up, but, I'm just thinking, I think in some cities, they're like, where there's a lot of tourism, like New Orleans or Austin or different places like that. I'm just wondering, is there like a certain quota of houses in a neighborhood or on a street that you know of, that any cities have put in place?
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that yet with short-term rentals. I know a lot of cities New Braunfels just flat said no on it, and then they're getting challenged at the Supreme Court right now, and I don't know if that's actually, I think they're going to the Texas Supreme Court. And I know there was a challenge to that, so in the planning world, I know we've been kind of sitting back waiting to see how what comes down from the courts on that one. One thing you can do, some cities, with specific use permits, they do enact quotas on that. So, like I said, in Bulverde, we did, for bed and breakfast, we required a specific use permit, and that was just if you lived there. And so, if you say you lived in, a neighborhood like Seneca, you come to the Planning and Zoning Commission, City Council, and ask for a specific use permit to operate your home as a short-term rental. And so one thing you can do is apply limits, I believe, on specific use permits. Like in San Marcos, we had a limit on the number of SUPs, because everybody, if you wanted to sell alcohol downtown, you had to get an SUP. And we would put limits on the number of SUPs that could be downtown for drinking establishments. So
That's how you control.
that's how you
Yeah.
could do it. So I don't, again, this is a Vit Navarro question, and whether or not you can just put limits on there just administratively without, not through zoning, just say, we only give out, because all these STRs will need certificate of occupancy. So I don't know if we can just put in our code no more than, 2 short-term rentals on any one block frontage. I don't know if we can just do that through a CO process, or whether you're taking away people's rights, or if the only way to do that is through zoning and say, sorry, we've already got 2 SUPs on Russo V, you don't get to do it, so I can totally research that for you.
So did I hear you?
So, Mr.
Oh,
Mellon,
yes.
I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
can't see you, that's okay. Mr. Hefner, Counselor Hefner, go ahead.
Yeah, so Mr. Mellon, just to clarify, we didn't discuss any sort of COO requirement regarding a residential property for an item that is permitted by right. Right now, if you go at SUP, right, that's different, but you know, my perspective on this is we don't have a problem right now, and we're allowing citizens to use their property how they see fit with this change. If in the future there's a problem, you address it then. We could what if this thing to death about, you know, well, what about this, what about that? And then the regulation comes like San Antonio's, where they've got 18 pages of regulations around this stuff. And I'm sure they have an entire department of people that manage it. We're not San Antonio. You know, and my perspective is that we let people use their property. The people that have come to me to ask to say, I'd like to do this, you know, I'm advocating for them. And I think that it's something that if you're a property owner and this is a choice that you make, then you should be able to use your property how you see fit. And, you know, if there becomes an issue where there's a noise issue or a health and safety issue, then that can be addressed with our code. But let's not try to what if this thing to death and figure out what exactly we need to solve for. The only thing we need to solve for right now is allowing citizens to use their property.
Okay. Any other, yes, Counselor Bradshaw.
So, anyway, so,
You bet.
I'm a little confused. Brandon, you say New Braunfels does not allow short-term rentals?
Correct.
So,
They don't in certain zoning districts. So I think, and again, I'm not the person to ask about the details of the Supreme Court case. I know Denton Navarro knows a lot about that. And so I believe what happened there was not that they didn't allow short-term rentals at all. Thanks for asking. I was kind of a little too general in my statement there. They changed their zoning code to make it a lot more restrictive on single-family zoning districts. You know, because people were buying up houses in and around Schlitterbahn in the area, and then they were just, you know, companies were buying up houses and they were becoming party houses, and they were starting to kind of eat into the neighborhoods there because it was just constantly, you know, being rented out for people that were hanging out at Schlitterbahn or Worst Fest or the different events there. And so I don't know exactly what zoning districts they changed that. I can definitely look into that for you guys, but I know they're single family zoning districts. That was the thing.
okay, so I know because I've been recently researching this for my own reasons, but I know New Braunfels has over 300 Airbnbs listed, 300 properties,
Wow.
yes. And I just looked at their website, and they actually have a page called short-term rentals. And then it has short-term rental regulations, registering short-term rental, current short-term rental permit holders. So they have a whole process. Obviously, they're a tourist destination because of Schlitterbahn and Worst Fest and the rivers and different things like that. But
So why do we have a no up
that's
there
what
then?
I was confused about,
Yeah.
because they do have all of those things,
I
the
think it's-
registration permits, and I don't know about the hotel.
So let me, again, you know, the title of my slide is in single family dwelling districts. So I think
Oh,
it's just single family dwelling districts. I believe that was
That's
the
the
big
distinction.
contention there, because you had people going and buying, you know, houses in neighborhoods, sort of like our R1 district. You know, I mean, there's like lots of, you know, there's tons of different types of neighborhoods there. So I think the issue there was just a single family. So again, thanks for bringing that up. I'll get with Navarro, and I'm sure they're up on that legislation and figure out, okay, what exactly did New Braunfels do? Where's that case? Maybe they lost. Maybe that's why they have a big page. I don't know. Or you know, and where can you do it in New Braunfels?
okay. And I just want to understand, I agree with Mr. Hefner, let's quit, you know, kind of thinking this to death and approve it. But if there is a problem in the future, if we pass this, then we would come back with an SUP or a tier 1 and tier 2. Is that what I understand?
Right.
You can always come back with more regulations if we need it.
So if you, if you change the code and said, okay, we're gonna allow short-term rentals as long as they want,
Yeah.
doesn't have to be owner occupied in the R1, and then, you know, you start getting calls from citizens saying, my neighbor's not the same, or then you can change the code back. The only thing I do wanna look into for you guys is, I'm working under the assumption that these establishments would need to get a certificate of occupancy, because
Okay.
they're not being operated necessarily in a residential way. I'll find out. I'm realizing tonight,
Okay.
that's one thing I haven't done yet. I need to go look at these cities and see, does San Antonio require a certificate of occupancy? Because if they do typically do a certificate of occupancy, and that's not saying that we have to, I believe, if we're gonna treat it like a residential use, but if we did do certificates of occupancy, are the ones that would get the CEO kind of grandfathered into it if we decided to roll back and get more restrictive again? So our conversation's giving me some homework
Well,
here.
I just want to add, I have my husband and son we have a law office downtown, right behind the Baptist Memorial Hospital, and there's this big, huge house. They really wanted to sell into like a condominium or what, but anyway, they can't get anybody to rent it. So what they do is they rent it out VRBO. And I can just tell you two things. Trash, it's amazing how much, people generate trash and noise. And that's downtown, so it's not in the neighborhood, but that's just our experience. I also see them do yoga on the porch and, that kind of thing, but it's interesting being next to a VRBO, so anyway. Okay, I know we're spending a lot of time in this, and we've got about 3 more components to this ordinance, so the next one is?
The next ones are gonna go fast.
Okay,
These are
there you
easy. The
go.
first two
Yeah,
are,
but thank you, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a new issue, so thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Yes,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Mr. Hefner. Okay, go ahead.
okay, mobile food units, that's a fancy way of saying food trucks.
Mhm.
So a lot of cities are addressing this head on. We haven't really addressed it. We talked about it at Planning and Zoning Commission last year a little bit, because we had a few people reach out during COVID because restaurants were closed, and so the commission at that time decided, you know what, we've got bigger fish to fry right now, and so we decided to wait on that. But in the meantime, we've gotten a few more people that have expressed interest. We actually have one gentleman that thought they were allowed and placed his food truck down at the Valero down at 410, and we had to say, no, you're not allowed to do that, so he had to move that, and he's been patiently waiting for us to work on this. And so, and we've had other people, Camille with Sorry was interested in doing this potentially last year. We get calls at least every couple of weeks on this, and so frankly, I'm a food truck advocate. I think they're great. There's a lot of arguments, but for those arguments, there's another argument for it. And so I brought this forth. This came from me. Took it to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they were interested in sending it to the council for a decision. My recommendation was that we allow food trucks with an SUP. It's not change it to make it by right, because there's a lot of properties in Leon Valley that have some issues, and I think SUP is the right way to go initially. Maybe down the road we'll have it permitted by right and just have some administrative things that I check off. But for right now, let's take it slow. My recommendation is to start allowing food trucks with a specific use permit. Again, like I said, right now our code doesn't address it, so it's not allowed. So here's the definition. Just like whenever we introduce something, we need to put it in the permitted use matrix and also introduce a definition. So here's the definition that staff recommended. A mobile food unit is a food service establishment licensed by the city of Leon Valley that is operated out of a motor vehicle or similarly mobile equipment. So the question came up at Planning and Zoning Commission, well, are you just allowed to sell tacos out of your El Camino? No, that wouldn't be licensed by the health sanitarian, because there would be requirements with a food truck. You have to have a commissary. People need to have a place to go to the bathroom. It needs to pass the health inspection with our health inspector through our sanitarian. And so that's why we inserted licensed by the city of Leon Valley. that is designed to be readily movable and is also licensed by the state of Texas to travel along public rights of way. So if it needs to be moved, it could be moved.
Okay, so how do we get around, like having food trucks at the 4th of July, for instance?
It's on public property.
It's on public property, is that how?
Yeah, it's on public property and it's not at a fixed location.
Okay.
That's
so
the thing.
Okay, so that, like earthwise and, okay.
Right,
Thank
and
you.
so,
I
you know,
appreciate that
city, we have,
distinction.
some liberty there with our parks, and then, they're just gonna be there for a couple hours. So this is a situation where, say, you own a piece of property and you wanna rent out a parking space to a food truck.
I see.
And it's
Okay,
gonna
so
be
more
there every
permanent.
day.
Okay,
Right.
excellent, all right.
And so, typically you address food trucks from two angles. One is mobile food vendors from a fixed location, or mobile food vendors, just not from a fixed location.
Okay.
One is typically for about 3 days, the other one's permanent. This is not addressing if somebody wants to be at City Hall one day and then be at the library the next day. We're not allowing that
Okay.
yet. This is just a more permanent thing. And so again, I recommend the SUP. We don't know what the particular circumstances are, and we always need to have the Planning and Zoning Commission, the council needs to have the ability to potentially say, well, that's a good idea, but your access is really dangerous here. It's always been an issue. You need to repair that intersection, and you'll need to have the ability to maybe require a couple of trees to beautify it, or so that was my recommendation, and Planning and Zoning Commission said, please send it on to council.
Okay, excellent, all right.
Permanent makeup. Okay, so I learned a lot about this. We've been getting lots of calls about permanent makeup. People want to locate in Leon Valley, and they always call and say, it's not tattoos, it's permanent makeup. So what's the difference? And so I had to do a lot of research. There's actually lots of different kinds of permanent makeup. Right now, we don't allow it at all. So I don't have any concerns with it as long as we have a good definition. Planning and Zoning Commission didn't have any concerns with it either. And so, but.
Did somebody bring that to your attention?
We actually have, fortunately, we have a lady that opened up at Seneca Plaza. She wasn't really familiar with our regulations,
Okay.
and so we, of course.
I see,
with
that's
your
how this
CO,
came involved. Okay.
Exactly, and then
Alright.
so she, naturally she was concerned. She's already gotten into a lease, and then we've had other people too, so, okay, let's try to figure this out for you, and so, cosmetic, or permanent makeup, it's also called cosmetic tattoos, micropigmentation, uses a pen, iron oxide, put tattoos in the skin, and it's in the difference between a cosmetic makeup and permanent tattoos and just regular tattoo is they are specifically intended to mimic makeup. So, you don't have eyebrows on your shoulder, you have them on your eyes, and so that's where they go. There's also microblading, which is specifically intended to mimic eyebrows. That's a little bit different than a tattoo. That's where you actually cut little things in your eyebrow to mimic strands. From people I've talked to, that's not the in thing anymore because it's really painful and you have to redo it every 3 or 4 years. And so now they're doing this thing called micropigmentation or nano blading, I think is what the nano something. So this field is really advancing. So anyway, yeah, there's, so this was fun. I took a shot at this definition, and so permanent makeup salon is an establishment that provides cosmetic tattooing, micropigmentation, microblading, nanoneedle, there you go, nanoneedle technology, or similar permanent cosmetic techniques with the purpose of mimicking temporary makeup such as eyeliner, lipstick, or to give the appearance of darker or thicker eyebrows, but not including the tattooing of designs, letters, figures, and symbols.
Okay.
So I sent this over to the city
Never
attorney.
did.
I recall I need to double check with him that he was fine with it. This was before Mrs. Stevens took over, so definitely would like her feedback on that definition. And so there you go. There's the potential PUT amendment. So permitted in all zoning districts.
Okay.
All right, so restaurants. Okay, so this one is specifically in reference to the Chachos. Yeah,
Right.
so
Like that.
when we started, talking about that several months ago, kind of getting that ready, started talking with the new tenant over there, and I was looking at the zoning code, and I was like, wait a second, that's B1. Our code does allow B1. That was through a special legal agreement, and so different attorneys have different opinions, and so, I talked to Mr. Zeck about this, and he's like, yeah, we need to, let's amend the code, so wanna bring this in before, before they go through the CO process, so they're able to locate there, and I'm actually like that, well, you just do it through size, you know, we're, Henry's Buffy Taco, absolutely not, that's too big, the scale's just totally off for a neighborhood, but 2,500 square feet, that's fine. So, and that's exactly what that building is, so this will totally solve that problem.
Okay, so do you have other B1 locations that restaurants could possibly go into? I was thinking about, you know, where the driver's license, that little corner piece?
That is B2.
Oh, that's B2?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then right across the street in front of the church, is that B1? Or
B2.
Okay, it's B2.
The only
Okay.
other, I think the only other B1 we have
Yeah.
is the silo property.
Okay.
There's a
all
piece
right.
over there on that. That's
Okay.
just these two, so.
Okay, very good.
Yeah,
So it's
it's
not
really
gonna affect-
mostly-
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mainly just gonna help out
All right.
the Kinman house.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So that was pretty easy, and the, and so put a few different caveats in here. Number one, drive-throughs not permitted in the B1. Total floor area be limited to 2,500 square feet, which basically means somebody could reuse a house. There's a bunch of little duplexes along Evers as you get closer to 410. That would be great for redevelopment as dentist office one day, or little restaurants or something like that. So those are about 2,500 square feet. So I'm kind of thinking ahead to those as well if somebody wanted to rezone. And then lastly, alcohol. They're probably going to want to sell alcohol there.
They are.
I think that sounds great, but you know, most cities, not necessarily most, but in my experience, a lot of cities, you know, we require SUPs for a lot of stuff here. Most cities don't require SUPs for a lot, but they just require them for a few things, like dog kennels and alcohol. And so that's one thing, you know, not a huge fan of SUPs, but you know, when you're dealing with safety, I recommend it. So this is one case where I'd say, on that one, you know, have them come in and get their SUP. That way, you know, since people are leaving, they're drinking, that's right there to neighborhood, and it's right by the library too, you know, so maybe apply some hours or something. So that's my recommendation. And the last one is gyms and physical fitness facilities. Got quite a few calls on this one over the years, particularly about Gold's Gym, people wanting to relocate in there. That's a real, you know, kind of unusual little spot. So the answer's always been no. Gyms and physical fitness facilities are only allowed in the B3. I think the idea with doing this in the zoning code is that typically gyms and physical fitness facilities are big box kinds of uses. And our B2 district is not really a big box district, it's more of a community type district. And all the big box stuff goes over off of 410. And that's mostly, like, that's where most of our B3 is. And so I think that was the idea, but and I believe we had two businesses that we found at Seneca, the microblading lady, and I think somebody was wanting to open up a little gym facility there, and so that was what brought this one to a head for me as well. Like, okay, we have somebody that's trying to locate. I don't have concerns with gyms. I think the idea is that they don't generate sales tax off of the subscriptions, or whatever you call it, memberships. But I think, you know, smaller types of gyms, they can be compatible and supportive with some of our retail use.
So is this particularly addressing the former gym that was in the Rita Cocina Shopping Center there?
This would help them.
That would help them, because that's been vacant for,
I know.
I can't tell you how many years.
Nothing,
Yeah.
it's just, you know, they don't have a
Okay.
lot of windows there, and that curve is just kind of strange. So
Okay.
this would probably help facilitate finally getting somebody back in
Okay.
it. Maybe another local type of gym.
Okay.
This will help out the person at Seneca Plaza that's currently waiting, I think, to reopen,
Okay.
or be able to open, and anywhere else. I think smaller gyms, you know, you go in there and go buy a smoothie next door or something.
Okay.
Seem to get
About a food truck, actually.
and the planning and zoning commission felt the same way, so they recommended approval of all these things. So that's all I have.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Mr. Milan on this agenda item 10.2 before I open up the public hearing for our citizens? Yes, Counselor Stevens.
So I have a question, and I don't know, I don't know what to compare it to, I was trying to look online, but, so for the food truck business, the SUP seems like a lot of work to me. I don't know if I'm correct in thinking that, but like for food trucks that may come like for like less than, like just a few days, say there's like a special, a bowling tournament, and they wanna come set up in the Bandera Bowl parking lot for like 4 or 5 days, they're gonna have to get an SUP?
Yes. Right now.
But that process is pretty cumbersome, right?
I haven't gotten any calls from anybody that wants to just do a food truck for a couple of days. All the calls I'm getting from people is they have a specific site, they have a property owner that wants to maximize their property, and they want to park that thing there in perpetuity. So that's what I'm reacting to. But, you know, if you want to set something up, you know, if you want me to take this back before, I mean, I think we probably need to go back to P&Z if we wanted to really make it more complicated. But if you want us to look at kind of streamlining the process for shorter duration food trucks, we can, y'all can keep doing this one and send this through and approve this, and I can go back to P&Z and Cassidy's out there right now, and we can tackle the how to treat, you know, 2 or 3 days, and we can do what I was talking about, where we have one set of regulations for mobile food vendors for more than 3 days, and then another set of regulations for mobile food vendors that, you know, want to park out front every Tuesday, every first and second Tuesday of the month for city council meetings and sell tacos, and or go somewhere else, you know, go over to, you know, John Marshall and sell tacos to high school kids or something.
Right, and I think there might be a creative way to address that by like saying like a food truck, and I would probably say like on an annual basis, in that a food truck that's in a location on an annual basis for like more than 7 days or something, needs to go through the SUP process. However, a food truck that's gonna be on this site for less than, and I'm just throwing out a number, I don't know what's reasonable, but less than 7 days can go through some type of streamlined, cheaper process, obviously get a health inspection, but maybe all the other stuff isn't necessarily, because I you know, there's a food truck park over off of Babcock, I think, now, like a big, you know, there's like always different, you know, there's food trucks that, so I think it's kind of getting more trendy. And
Josh
so
said
maybe if a food truck only wants to
and
be
the
at
mayor
a
said,
location for a
that's
special
what I
event,
like.
and they have to go through the SUP process, they're very likely not going to come here, so.
Yeah, the SUP process it's worth the time if you're gonna be able to.
If you're gonna stay there for a long period of time.
Yeah, I agree with you. SUP process isn't,
But
it's something administrative for.
So if there's a company along Bandera Road that has a special event and they want a food truck, there's literally no way for them to get a food truck into their parking lot without, like, if this is passed, no, just for a short term.
Well, I was gonna say, long term, that's gonna be an issue. Right now, we're, you know, with COVID, we've been more relaxed on that. Like Nora's insurance agent, she called and she wants to have a food truck outside to do a customer appreciation, because she can't have the event inside because she's, you know, being mindful of COVID. And so we were like, yes, absolutely, you know, we can kind of put that under the emergency restrictions. And so right now we kind of have a pass because we're trying to be, you know, mindful of that. And so, but I think long term, yeah, we need to come up with some good regulations if somebody just wants to have a food truck out for a couple days.
Right, so I guess just knowing that if we can maybe plan for that in, you know, 3 or 5 months.
P&Z actually, they wanted to get this through to accommodate our one gentleman, Mr. Solarte. But they said, hey, let's see how this goes and start working on some streamlined administrative processes. And they actually kind of directed me to look at streamlined administrative processes for fixed ones as well. And maybe look and say, okay, let's see how the first couple go. You know, or you know, we're gonna require, you know, okay, maybe you need to have X amount of parking spaces, you need to have a bathroom, you need to have the commissary, maybe you have some benches out there, a little landscaping to beautify it or something. So yeah, we'll put
Yeah,
that
I think
into it.
it's worth it, and I know, because I'm just thinking of that food truck park, but also like at schools and stuff, there's name brand companies that have created, like their whole business is mobile,
Yeah.
but they're not in the same location. Like they always go to a different, you know, I mean, maybe they hit the same place a couple times every year, but, and, because I, you know, on social media and stuff, I've seen stuff like that.
Kona Ice, they're like they're
Right.
pioneers of it, you know, if you go to neighborhoods.
Well, let's hear from the citizens, if there's no other, did you have another, yes, go ahead.
Just real quick, Mayor, thank you.
You bet, I just want to hear what they have to say.
And just, I don't mind people having an R&B. I don't mind them having a little extra cash to spend and to help fix the house and stuff like that. But I do believe that there has to be some type of rule and regulations to govern this. We don't wanna come back 6 months later and say, hey, the neighbors complain about this, the neighbors complain about that. Well, let's make a rule about it now. Why can't we be proactive and think about the rules and that may affect the neighbors ahead of time? I know we're putting 3 different issues in one reading.
That's unusual.
And that's difficult because I may approve of one and not of the other. And I really don't understand why there's been an, hold on, sir. And as far as food trucks, I know that some of the business people want them there, but some business people don't. And the one that was trying to park right there in Bandera and in Hebner, I'm not against the food trucks. I love them. I'm a connoisseur finding food trucks. But again, we just can't let everything run amok without any rules and regulations to govern this. Especially the R&B, like I said, I don't mind. I know some people that do have it here, and they take care of the houses and they do very well, and I don't mind them having. But let's be proactive and say, well, what kind of problems are they going to exist in the future, and address those before we allow them to have that.
Great points, again, to the point about the food trucks, that's why my recommendation was, let's take baby steps and do SUPs. That way y'all have the ability to take each one on a case-by-case basis. We can kind of see what are some of the common things that come up with each one, what are some of the things that are unique to each one. So I think that's a good point. And with the short-term rentals, that's exactly, I think, what we're here to tonight is, you know, Councilor Hefner wanted to introduce this, bring it to you guys, but then have dialogue about it, see how the rest of the council feels, and then for y'all to give me direction before next reading. So if, you know, I don't know if I take what you're saying is, you know, we need to address some of the issues that could potentially happen proactively. So I know Councilor Hefner has his views, so then
Sure.
I need to get direction from the rest of y'all about what do I need to do between now and next council meeting. So I guess I'll leave that open to let y'all kind of tell me.
I'll meet with you as well.
Absolutely, sounds great.
All right, sounds good. Well, let's go ahead and open up this public hearing. I know we have quite a few people that may want to weigh in this evening, so yes, please come forward, Ms. Bolton, and good evening and welcome. And I'll open up this public hearing at approximately 9:07 on April the 6th. And good evening and welcome.
Danielle Bolton, Sun Valley, I believe. I'm still reeling from them even discussing opening up our neighborhoods to lodging and boarding houses. Living in a neighborhood, I have some neighbors that are already kind of difficult. I cannot imagine having a revolving door on my street. I kind of feel like this is something that we don't have the authority to make a decision for. It needs to be taken to the voters. The people that are going to be affected by this need to have a say in this because this is their neighborhood. And yes, you do have a right as a property owner to do what you want on your own property. But if it affects my quality of life, then I have a right to be able to have an opinion at least. As far as food trucks and stuff go, that's so ugly. They just are, and I understand that they are revenue and things like that, but please make sure that there's if they are passed, that it's enforced, that it's nice looking, that it's aesthetically pleasing, and not more trash all over the place. We have enough of that. I live by the park, I get to deal with the Easter stuff, and 4th of July, people throw their trash in my yard, and they park in my grass, and, you know, just things like that. I think we really need to focus more on our citizens than we have in the past.
Okay.
And I also, as far as the fluoride goes, I just want to comment, San Marcos has also got it right now to remove the fluoride.
Oh.
I grew up in Land Valley. I've drank the water for 43 years and I do not have dental problems, but I have taken good care of my teeth. I have a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old that have never had a cavity. I've made sure they brush their teeth. You know, it goes along with hygiene, things like that.
Sure.
I don't know if the good outweighs the bad when you're talking about introducing a foreign body into your, you know, we saw the negative things. I'm not sure, I would have to have a lot more information about something like that, but again, that's something that should go to the voters.
Okay, I
Not
appreciate that.
just city
Yeah, we
council.
want to try to just keep it, you
No,
know,
no, no, I
focused on
appreciate it.
this, yeah.
I'm done.
But I'm
Thank
glad
you,
to hear, I'm glad to hear your opinion on the fluoride as well. Yes, this is for the P and Z recommendations of the 4 or 5 items, and I believe, Mr. Bull, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor Council. Evan Bolt, Forest Standerfield. Obviously on the topic, I'm glad Brendan has brought this forward, and the only thing I did see a point of contention is, you know, for the food trucks that only need to be here for the time of the daylight. As long as they have the health records that they are required to have, they go through an inspection, then a temporary SP should be granted, and obviously that should be streamlined. Otherwise, the process for being in a location for extended amount of time, every weekend, et cetera, that should remain in place. I'm glad we're moving everything into the 21st century, actually, with regard to temporary rentals, you know, Airbnb, or you know, the homeowners themselves just renting it out to make an extra buck. It's a new source of income. It's a new way of making income in the 2000s now. And I don't think we should be limiting our community to that. It is well within the right of the city council to ensure that process, the infrastructure for that to occur, and the code is there, and we leave it up to the citizens. Ms. Bolton was correct in that, but it's the citizens of that property. I should be able to have a home and enjoy renting it out. If I'm gonna be out of town for a month, I can make use of that property. It'll help me pay my property tax. It'll help me pay, you know, whatever it is I would like. So I do think you should approve this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Miller.
Jack Miller, San Antonio, and eventually I'll be doing business in Leon Valley, so, right. The gentleman's name from the zoning that was up here talking,
Oh, Mr.
Brandon?
Milan. Brandon Milan, M-E-L-L-A-N-D.
Okay, so Brandon might not know about what happened in New Braunfels regarding the rentals. I have 2 there.
Oh, do you?
That all stemmed out of competition. The people with the money versus the people without the money or as much money battling over real estate and what we could do with our real estate. You know, they have rooms they want to charge an X amount for, and here I am with my house charging way less. And they have pull and power in the city, and so yeah, there's certain places that they said no, right? So that's what happened there. I wouldn't use what's going on there as a something to study for what we're going to do in Leon Valley. I'd go somewhere else. And then, good Lord, there were so many things talked about. So we have
A lot of topics.
Oh, taco trucks or
Food trucks.
Yeah, food trucks. You pull into a parking lot, you sell some tacos, and you leave. Good point. Josh brought up that we need to have a plan for folks that just want to do that. It happens where I live all the time. There's two trucks that come in, and they're there and they're gone, and then they come back. They're there every day. You would think that they're there permanent, but they're not. They come and go, and folks need to be able to do that. There needs to be rules and regulations because we don't want people getting sick. It really doesn't matter what they look like. You know, what is beautiful to one person may be ugly to another person. And y'all don't need to get involved with that. If somebody doesn't like the way they look, they just don't go there. But anyway, definitely rules so people don't get sick. Definitely contingency for folks that want to come and go.
if you're gonna be there permanent, whether you're in a building or a truck or a wheelbarrow, it doesn't matter, you're permanent, right? So you're just permanent, it doesn't matter what you're housed in, that's one thing, but folks that wanna come, quickly and leave, there's, needs to be a plan for that.
Okay, very good.
One more thing.
Yes, you still
Am I
have some
still got
time.
What we can't do though,
25 seconds.
what we can't do though is say, oh, it's the park, so you can do it there, and, well, you can do it there because you can't do it inside, but you can't do it, but you can. We can't be making decisions like that, put y'all in a bad spot. We need to have a rule, a fast rule in place for everybody to follow, that's equal to everybody.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else on this topic that would like to comment? We had several items from food trucks to short-term rentals. Okay, seeing no one else, then I will close the public hearing at 9:16. And there is no vote tonight, since it is the first read, but Mr. Mullen, you need some direction on expanding what the council would like as far as any kind of SUP or rule on any one of those
Yes, ma'am.
topics, gymnasiums, whatever. So, what is I know you were saying, Councilman Orozco, you'd like to see the SUP at the front end rather than the back end when there's problems. Okay, all right. Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Just some clarification on Airbnbs, like, how many would be allowed in a certain neighborhood or, different streets. I think that needs to be clarified.
Absolutely, will do. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Stevens.
So my opinion differs a little bit. I stay in Airbnb probably 7 to 10 days out of the year. And at all sorts of locations and all. I mean, generally these are the nicest houses in the neighborhood from what I've experienced personally. Obviously I book based on reviews. So there's an incentive for people to keep their properties nice. I know somebody that currently is doing Airbnb, well, maybe not right now. I searched Leon Valley, there's several houses that are currently listed on Airbnb. I looked at San Marcos, it would conflicted with the chart because there were at least 100 houses that were doing Airbnb. I think we allow the citizens to use their property like they want to use, like they currently are doing, several of them. And I'm not going to single anybody out, but Airbnb makes you go through a process where you remit taxes to the county now. And so when you register with Airbnb, I don't know the VRBO, how that works, but it's a way to increase tax revenue. You're allowing homeowners or people that own properties to do what they want with their property. If there's not a problem, we don't need to make a problem out of nothing. We wait until there's a problem and then address it. Our goal as government is not to tell people what they need to do, it's to enable them to live their best life. And so I don't want to restrict people, especially because I know people in Leon Valley that do it, from continuing to do what they do, because it's their prerogative as far as I'm concerned, until it starts affecting the livelihoods of those around them, which we don't have an example of somebody that has experimented with Airbnb and they've negatively impacted a person next to them. So,
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
we do. So, so I would encourage those people to reach out to us and let's address the situation, as the actual situation, not as let's reprimand the whole city because, San Antonio, when we remodeled our house, we stayed at Airbnb for quite a bit of time in San Antonio. We would have stayed at a Leon Valley one and paid Leon Valley taxes, but we didn't because there was none available. That was when Leon Valley was very aggressive with the enforcement. So, the city of Leon Valley lost out on tax revenue that we gave to San Antonio, which didn't, so it's we're almost hurting ourselves by ignoring the fact of what's around us. And so that's my take on it, and I'll leave it there.
Yes, Councilor Bradshaw.
Yeah, I agree with Councilor Stevens, and I think we should make it available and, see what happens. I don't envision a situation where, 9 out of 10 houses on a street are Airbnb rentals. People, majority of the people in Leon Valley live in Leon Valley, our families, not, in it to to try and make rentals, and I agree with Councilor Stevens, most of the places, they're very dependent on reviews, and pictures and people's experience there, so they're gonna, have, ratings based on their experience there, and, we talk about making Leon Valley a destination place, we have our 4th of July, we have nice library, pools, things like that, and so, and the location, if you think about it, where Leon Valley's at, destination to Six Flags, to the Alamo, to SeaWorld, people come in from out of state, they wanna go to these things, we're kind of central to all those places that people would wanna go to, so I think it's something where we should approve this, and if it becomes an issue, I'd be interested in hearing what Ms. Caldera said. We've had some complaints. I'd like to hear about those more specifically.
Yeah. Mr. Milan, are there other samples in other communities of SUPs that regulate short-term rentals that we could just look at?
I'm not
They must,
as familiar with SUPs.
there was SUP on the
Yeah.
chart, and I didn't know what tier 1 and tier 2 was. I just wanted to have more information on that, that's all. Because, that was my gut feeling was, I understand what the council's saying, that let's just see where it goes. But then I'd like to see what a regulation would look like if we were to have to go there. Just, look at it all
I'll bring that back
at
next
one time. So,
That way
and
it's
Councilor Hefner, I haven't heard from you. Any final direction?
I just shared my thoughts.
Okay, I just
I
wanted
think
to be
because
sure.
knows where I live there. I mean, I guess I'll say this about it,
Okay.
to kind of follow in the path of Mr. Stevens, Mr. Bradshaw. I had a situation 3 years ago where my mother-in-law shoots 5 siblings, and they do a family reunion every year. And they wanted to come to San Antonio in that particular year to do a family reunion. Well, 5 siblings means 5 families. And for them to go and stay in a hotel, they would need 5 rooms. And instead, there was at the time a house listed on Airbnb in Leon Valley where the owner it was I think a 6-bedroom house actually. And it was perfectly located to Mr. Bradshaw's point, right? They want to go to the Riverwalk, if they want to go to Six Flags, if they want to go to SeaWorld, all of those things are right around, and we are very uniquely located. And San Antonio allows it just outside of our borders, right? Outside of the city limits of Leon Valley. And so, it would have been wonderful to go to this particular house and have that be the place that they did their family reunion, because instead of going to a hotel and then having, not really having a common space where they could all get together, they could have gone to a home. This particular home had a pool, right? It would have been very attractive for them to do. And then they're gonna come and do that for a week, 10 days, and all of the money that they're bringing into our community in terms of tourism dollars, like that was all lost because essentially when that was no longer an option, right? Because about that same time, when we were reaching out to this particular listing, that individual notified us that he had been shut down by the city. And so that was kind of my first introduction to this issue. I've seen numerous people do this in other places and do it very successfully in their own home and in other rental properties that they own. And so I think that it's just an unfortunate situation that our city, through an antiquated code, right, and our laws are not up to date with the way that people want to use their homes. There are military members who relocate, they get PCS, but they don't want to sell their house. Maybe they want to list their home on Airbnb. There are, people who want to have intergenerational living, right? Or maybe you want to downsize because your kids have moved out of the house. Or maybe you're on a fixed income and you need additional income through renting out that vacant room. Right? All of those, there's so many different situations where this could be beneficial to people if they're allowed to simply use the assets that they have at their disposal. And rather than being detracted by the potential negative situation, I rather look at, hey, let's allow it for everyone to use their property as they see fit. And then if we have issues, if we have issues, we can address the issues individually rather than trying to give people permission individually to allow them to use their property. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Mata, I'll certainly hear from you. I know we've closed the public hearing, but I'll certainly respect your input. And you have up to 3 minutes, and then we'll move on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, he's got a clean. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Not a big deal, don't worry.
Thank you.
Yeah, Eric Mata, Canterfield. I know we've talked about being business friendly, so on a couple of different fronts, you think about the residents who could just be a single person living in a home, who find themselves in a position where they need extra income. So on top of that, we need to think of those that might be visiting, possibly even those that have family members that might be patients at the medical center that would need maybe a week or 2 weeks, you know, of a nice, comfortable home to stay in. What does that bring to Leon Valley? I mean, you know, our restaurants would benefit from that. You know, places like the aquarium would as well. Yeah, so, you know, the idea of shutting down that opportunity, I don't think it'd be very wise. I think we should be open to that, so.
Thank you.
Sure.
I appreciate that. All right. So as I said, that was the first read, and Mr. Mullen, you have some direction for the next follow-up meeting on April the 20th?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thanks again, sorry for piling all that into one item. I didn't want to have 6 different separate items and create a whole new page, so I was thinking if we.
Okay, well, like I said, this is
But I
the
know
first
it's a lot,
time we've
so.
had it, multi-thing, but I think it was, we took a while to get through it all, but I think it was a thorough discussion. And thank you very much.
Bring back
Really
12
appreciate
next
that.
time.
And thanks to the zoning commission for also spending the time on it. All right, moving then to agenda item 10.3. We have another ordinance, first read. Ms. Posley, if you'll please read that ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Leon Valley, Texas City Council accepting the Southwest Texas Regional Advisory Council Trauma System Grant in the amount of $7,034.75, amending the general fund budget of the City of Leon Valley, Texas municipal budget for the fiscal year 2020-21 in the amount of $7,034.75 to provide funding for the Leon Valley Fire Department to purchase medical supplies and equipment used for providing emergency medical care in Leon Valley, providing for repeal or severability and savings clause, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, very good. Good evening, Chief, and congratulations on the grant.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Yes.
This is an item we bring to you every
Every
year.
year.
We apply for this grant every year. This money comes from trauma dollars given to the county that are made available to the EMS agencies only, that provide emergency care. This portion of money changes every year. Next year I can come to you and that number can be $2,000. I've never seen it much more than that. But we do several things with this money. And basically it says we purchase EMS supplies and equipment. We try to use this money to replace smaller equipment that is not listed, that's not a capital item. This year our plan is to replace some suction units that are probably about 15 years old, that we have 2 that are damaged and 3 that are on trucks that we can't buy parts for anymore. We use it to buy that smaller EMS equipment to keep it serviceable and current. This money, the $7,000 that we're talking about here, it's already been deposited. You already have the money. It's not a match of any kind. I have to submit an expense report by June the 1st, and that's it. This money comes from the 911 fees on your cell phone bills. It comes from trauma dollars brought into the county, and some fines from the state of Texas when they pay for traffic tickets of some sort. But it all comes together. It's all given to STRAC, the South Texas Regional Advisory Council on Trauma, and they distribute the funds.
Oh, sorry. Hold on.
So this is a first read, we're just asking you, this is actually a budget adjustment that we're asking for the exact same amount that we have already deposited in the bank, to have this money moved into our EMS supply account so we can purchase the necessary equipment and supplies. And this should reduce costs to our citizens because they don't have to buy this equipment. And all it is a budget adjustment, it's a first read. I'll stand for any questions.
All right. Chief, this is South Texas region, so this is not just Bear County, it goes into a larger region?
It's 17 counties.
Oh, wow. So how much money are we talking about? Total?
The Bear County portion of this,
Okay.
I believe, was 100 and, I can tell you. hold on one
Okay, I was
second.
just curious, and how many cities do you have to apply, and how many cities
We
did
do.
they award?
It was $194,260
Okay.
for FY '21, and there is, I didn't bring the whole list.
Okay.
All the EMS systems in Bear County received the exact same amount of money except for San Antonio.
Okay.
San Antonio got $38,852. I only have a few on here. Kirby gets the same amount
Okay.
as us. San Antonio Airlines doesn't get any. They deny it.
Okay.
Schertz and Chavano Park, they all get the same amount of money
Okay.
regardless
Very
of
good.
calls. And this, just so y'all know, the system was originally based on the number of runs you make, and everybody got together and said, we're just gonna split it, because we probably wouldn't get much.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Well, thank you. Those are my questions. Any other questions from the council on this particular agenda item's first read? Okay. Seeing no one, then we will move then to the next agenda item.
Thank you very
See,
much.
thank you, Chief. We really appreciate your proactiveness on following those grants. Let's move then to agenda item 10.4. Discussion and possible action on a resolution declaring intent to phase out red light cameras, and this was at the request of Councilor Josh Stevens. Mr. Stevens, as I said earlier this morning, or this afternoon, we had a lot of citizen input on this, but I don't know, since you requested the item, how would you like to begin the discussion? I'll let you take the lead, and then we'll make sure that everybody gets to have their 2 cents as well. Go ahead, sir.
So I'd say that for starters, the red light camera issue, very contentious. We know that, but there's a truth that none of us can change, and it's that Texas passed a law that outlaws cameras as soon as our contract ends. It's inevitable. It's inevitable we have to get rid of the red light cameras at some point or another. It's just our choice when we do it. What you'll see in front of you, or in your agenda packet today, is a very generic resolution. It was much longer initially, and it was shortened down quite a bit, just to leave the options open. And so the goal is, my goal, I guess, is that this resolution says that we intend to explore options to phase out the red light camera program. And then that enables staff to approach ATS and say, hey, the council said that they want to phase them out. We need to talk about how we're going to do this, how many years long, if we need to, at the best, and we also need to plan financially wise for however we plan to do the process. Obviously, we're kind of, fees. It's a sad state, to be completely honest, in my opinion, but we're addicted to these fees. We're reliant upon them. They create the foundation for a lot of funding that we use, for our law enforcement. It's, all the cities around us, they don't have red light cameras, and they operate well. They have good public safety. So we can do it too. It's just a matter of actually doing it. And, we didn't include this in the resolution because the former police chief, he says that they were underreporting vehicle crashes in the past. Frankly, I don't believe it. I think it's just a lie, but I'll tell you the average, so from 2011 to 2017, the Texas Department of Transportation data, if you average those 7 years, we averaged 431 total crashes per year, vehicle crashes. It's documented on a CR3 report, which is essentially if a law enforcement officer goes to the scene of a crash and there's at least $1,000 of damage to people or property, like medical bills or property, then law enforcement officers are obligated to fill out this specific form. And so that's how this is documented and trended. So we averaged 431 crashes per year from 2011 to 2017. This is Leon Valley's jurisdiction. It's everywhere. It's if there's an accident in the neighborhood, or if there's an accident on Bandera Road, or anywhere that Leon Valley responds to within the confines of Leon Valley, 78238, 78240, you know, in our district. Now, if another law enforcement agency was to respond to a vehicle crash in Leon Valley, officers didn't show up, it might distort these statistics, but I think that's a very rare occurrence that would happen. Well, in 2018, the cameras went live, February of 2018. So remember, 431 crashes for if you average the 7 years. And actually, 2016 and 2017, it was 236 crashes, then 332 crashes. So those 7 years averaged 431. 2018, the first year red light cameras were implemented, 876 crashes. 2019, sorry, I gotta scroll up because the graph is so high. 1,118 accidents. The first year that's recorded where we had over 1,000 crashes in Leon Valley. 2020, the year of COVID, and I really expected this to be like significantly down because the driving behaviors, people weren't going to work, they weren't going to school, less traffic crashes, it seems, if there's less people out on the road, but there's still 781 crashes in 2020 compared to, remember, that 2011 to 2017 average is 431 crashes. This, in my opinion, is objective information. It's not using a classification of if it occurred in an intersection, if it didn't occur in an intersection, if it's a T-bone, if it occurred 190 feet away from the intersection or 210 feet away from the intersection, because then you start to get into a bunch of subjective information, which generally is not going to be, it's not a fair apples to apples comparison. So I look at it as an apples to apples comparison. What are our Texas Department of Transportation trends? I understand if we're going to accuse, you know, past police department from 2011 or whatever to 2015 of underreporting, like we should be able to prove that. It hasn't been proven to me so far. And I don't know how we're making comparisons if we don't have a starting number. How do we compare? How can we say vehicle crashes have decreased 52% if we don't know how many crashes occurred in 2015? Like if we're saying the number in 2015 or 2014 or 2013 isn't accurate, then when we're saying that they decreased by 52%, that can't be accurate either, right? So anyway, so in my opinion, and I can also speak from my personal experience, and I'm sure we'll have citizens and a lot of citizens to comments and stuff, and other people on the dais, but my behavior is when I approach a red light, I know that the yellow light times are 3.5 seconds in Leon Valley throughout, and I slam my brakes if it's a yellow light. And I don't care what's behind me because they'll be at fault if they rear end me. And so my behavior has changed to where maybe I would have, and maybe I could have safely gone through the light, but I don't want to risk it. I don't want to go past the white line, right? And so I can see. I previously attached, there was 14, I don't think we made them all into the agenda packet, but there's over 1,000 pages of peer-reviewed research that I had originally attached, and I'll send it to anybody that wants it. Peer-reviewed research on the ineffectiveness of red light cameras throughout the United States. One of those studies was it was conducted by Texas A&M over a 15-year period in 3 of the largest cities in Texas. And it showed that there was the hypothesis was that implementing a red light camera program would reduce crashes. The data showed that wasn't true. And so that's why a lot of the large cities got rid of their cameras, because the goal is not to prevent people from blocking the intersection. The goal is not to increase traffic flow. The goal of implementing a red light camera system, it's not to make money. It shouldn't be. The goal should be to increase public safety. And if the data is showing that we aren't increasing public safety, that we're doing exactly the opposite, until there's other data that proves otherwise that you can put in front of me and it's objective, not subjective, I'm going to believe the data that's in front of me. And so that's where I'm coming from with this resolution. There's other reasons that people don't like the cameras. Councilor Bradshaw had a poll posted on Nextdoor until it got taken down a couple days ago. I think over 800 or 900 votes, 80% of those polled voted that they did not want red light cameras in Leon Valley. That speaks volumes. There's people that have expressed concerns about the constitutionality of red light camera programs, and that you're essentially, instead of, you're innocent until proven guilty, when you get a red light camera ticket, you're guilty until you prove your innocence. And if you want that clearly shown to you, just read our red light camera ordinance that talks about the cumbersome process of fighting a $75 ticket. In fact, a resident approached me when I was campaigning, and he said, hey, from Pavona, from Ray's neighborhood, and he said, hey, here's the deal. I got a red light camera ticket, but there was a fire engine approaching from the back side of me. And so I wanted to evade the fire engine. And so he pulled out into the intersection, or kind of into the intersection to the right, so the fire engine could go past. Well, the camera clip didn't catch the fire engine actually going through the thing, like through the intersection after he had pulled out. So he came up to City Hall, he was like ready to fight his ticket, and then he ended up waiting over 2 hours. And finally he was like, peace out, it's not worth it to me. Time is money, and to spend 2 hours fighting a red light camera ticket that I should have never received because I was simply getting out of the way of the emergency vehicle. And that particular resident from Pavona Place told me up until that point he strongly supported red light cameras, until he realized how cumbersome the process was to prove your innocence. And so there's varying reasons, and so my goal, at least, and from what I've understood from what citizens have told me, and again, I understand there's people that disagree, and I support that disagreement. I would show you the numbers if you want to sit down with me. I'll show you the TxDOT data, but the goal is to express intent, to then have staff explore options for exiting the agreement in the most savvy way for the city, where where liability is the lowest, and based upon the rationale that we decide. And then I'd also like to, at the end of our discussion, have a motion to have an executive session, because Roxy wants to discuss some legalities of the contract and how we can, the best thing for the city, given an expression of intent that we can do through resolution tonight. We can then discuss the feasibility and options based on just making a decision that's best in terms of the city's interest. So executive session. So at the end of our discussion, I'd like to motion that we approve this resolution that's simply expressing intent, and that we then have an executive session at the next council meeting or prior to discuss options and the ability to exit the contract. So.
All right, thank you very much, appreciate that. And we have Councilor Edwards who'd like to continue the discussion.
I think, that we should ask staff to look into this and see what is the most viable way to exit this contract. The state of Texas legislature, which I don't always agree with, of course, basically outlawed these things. And what happened was there was a rush to extend it for 20 years. Now, that doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't pass a lot of different kinds of tests. So I think we have a new city manager coming in, and in the meantime, I think we have a savvy, acting city manager that might have some ideas about this. And I think we ought to just pass this and say, let's let the staff explore options for withdrawing from this, because we are kind of addicted to the money, and we need to figure out a way to phase it out. If anyone believes that this was to take care of the traffic, well, there's some bridges in Brooklyn I'd like to sell you. It was all about making money and control, and so that's my viewpoint. And I will say, in the interest of being just upfront about it, I have had tickets. I don't like to get them. My son has driven cars that were registered to me. I've got tickets for him, but that's not why I'm against it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councilor Hefner, would you like to weigh in next, please?
Sure, I would. Thank you, Mayor.
You bet.
I sent Crystal a link. She's showing that now. This is from the National Motorists Association on the topic of red light cameras. It cites a number of different cities that have gone through and looked at the actual facts in their cities around increases. Los Angeles, Washington DC, Portland, Oregon, Fort Collins, Colorado, Oceanside, California, Philly, Pennsylvania, Corpus Christi, Texas, all of them see increases in accidents as a result of red light cameras. And these are actually studies, and feel free, Chris will include this in the record. All of these are linked where there's a red text. Those are all linked directly to each of the studies that have been done backing up these numbers. And so it's pretty widely known that this is not just cherry-picked data. If you go to all the places that have tried red light cameras and said, hey, this is a good idea, it doesn't actually affect public safety. And so for that to be the reason why we want to support it, okay, it just doesn't hold water. To Mr. Stevens' point around this, generating revenue, yeah, absolutely. Our city right now has a reliance on the significant revenue generated by these traffic tickets. There's, as he mentioned, there's a constitutionality issue. There's a legitimacy issue with the state law, right? We know that eventually this is going to go away. I'll save staff a little bit of time. I've read the contract. I've done quite a bit of research on the contract. And the easiest way for us to get out of the contract is to do it via the budget process. Now, nobody wants to pull the rug out from under our city. We need to think creatively around how we adjust our budget related to this revenue. I know in talking with the previous police chief and with our current fire chief, there's been significant capital investments done in terms of equipment. And my understanding is that the police department was ramping down with those capital investments from these funds. So as we go into the budget process, that's going to be a very important issue that we need to research and we need to think creatively about. So I think Mr. Stevens' intent with this resolution is to get staff thinking in that direction of, we don't want to pull the rug out from under anybody. We don't want this to be a surprise, but we think that our city and we think that our citizens want us to go in this direction. And so as a result, how do we accomplish that in a way that has the least amount of impact possible to all the stakeholders affected? And I think that that's the responsible way to govern, and in terms of being considerate and thinking through the impacts of this. Once we're in agreement that these cameras are not something that we want in our community. And don't get me wrong, right? The money's great. We can always do lots of great things with more money. I've never heard of a government that didn't find a way to spend more money. So, that's great, but at what cost, right? And this is, to my mind, a direct reaching into the pockets of citizens. I was saddened to hear Ms. Seifert earlier say that she paid a ticket earlier today, despite having no obligation to do so, based on our state law. And I think that that, to me, is a direct result of our current city policy and the contract that we're in, reaching into the pockets of citizens to try and take this money in an effort to find another project to spend it on. And there will be no shortage of those projects. So I think the whole notion of public safety has been disproven. And I'm said from the very beginning, when I became involved with this council, I'm a data guy. And so I have done extensive research on the data, and the data just does not prove out a public safety use case. And so happy to chat with anybody on that topic and the data. I'm happy to talk about kind of the direction we see our city going. But I think that the direction here is to talk with staff and council and think through what are the creative ways that we can go about exiting this contract and keeping our city and our citizens in the level of services that they have become used to expect.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Mayor.
Before I go to Councilor Bradshaw, I just had a question. Councilor Stevens, those statistics that you gave for TxDOT, was that for Bandera Road only in Leon Valley? Or is it all of the crashes in Leon Valley during those years?
So we have red light cameras at other intersections
Oh,
other
we
than
do.
Bandera Road.
We do, that's
So
right.
it's not
it's all
an
the red
accurate
light cameras.
comparison, yes.
Okay.
And I realized,
yeah.
and I'm sure if I read through enough CR3 reports, IHS or IHS standards are if there's an accident that occurs within 200 feet of an intersection, that it gets reported as an intersection accident. And I've seen a couple of reports that don't reflect that. So it makes you wonder the classification, how are accidents getting, so the best way to look at it objectively is to look at it collectively. And actually, I'll tell you, TxDOT doesn't even call it Bandera Road, it calls it State Highway 0016. Like in the, and so all the accidents are recorded on that. It's within the jurisdiction though, this is, and you select fill, I mean, anybody can go do this. It's a CRIS clear,
So it's not just Bandera Road?
so this is encompassing all. I could sort by Bandera Road, it's a similar pattern though. So.
I'd like to see that statistic for Bandera Road only, just,
Yeah,
so
I can pull that for you.
Anyway, but I was just wanting that clarification before we moved on to more comment. Councilor Bradshaw.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so I have quite a few comments on this. I know it's a contentious topic, as people have said, but I would like to make a couple of clarifications first.
Go ahead.
Mr. Hefner, Councilor Hefner said that in his discussion, I think he probably misspoke, but said that red light cameras do not affect public safety. And I would argue that they do affect public safety. By the statistics we've seen, they negatively affect public safety. Because it's caused more accidents, as we see in the reports and as Councilor Stevens has pointed out. So that is an effect of public safety, and that's one of our jobs as government, is to keep the public safe as much as we can. And then Jack had a comment earlier about running on this, campaigning on this issue. And I would just like to point out that I did not campaign on this issue, because at the time I campaigned in May of 2019 when I was elected, these cameras were legal in the state of Texas. And I actually came into office with an open mind. I went door to door and I asked people, basically, what do you like about Leon Valley? What don't you like? What would you like to change? You know, I didn't have a platform. Basically, I said, well, the council works for you. What things would you like? And I was opposed to the cameras, but I was listening to the residents and see what they said. And a lot of them brought up some good points to me. They have other effects that I do agree with, that they keep the intersections open. People don't block the intersections anymore. So that's a really good thing. But, you know, so that's what led to, as Councilor Stevens pointed out, the poll that I put on Nextdoor. I posted a poll on Nextdoor and opened it up to the residents and said, are you in favor of the red light cameras, or should Leon Valley get rid of them? And overwhelmingly, over 900 people voted on this poll. And overwhelmingly, 80% of the answers said get rid of the cameras. So as I stated earlier, you know, as representatives of the city, we're supposed to do what our constituents want, and they do not like the cameras.
Excuse me, Councilor Bradshaw, when was that poll put on Nextdoor?
I'd have to look at the exact date, but it was up for several months, I think, a couple months. So over a couple months,
Okay.
900 people voted in the poll. So, and a couple other comments about what citizens have said earlier. You know, that these are not citizens paying for them. Oh, the tickets come from outside, from San Antonio people. We don't care. We don't care. It's not. They're paying for our streets, and they're paying for us. And you know, I was raised in a Christian household. You know, I was taught love thy neighbor. To me, this is not. You know, you don't dig pits for your neighbors. That's what this is to me equivalent to. We're, you know, trying to make our neighbors. We're not an island here. We're Leon Valley. People have to pass through here, and we're not being good neighbors by fining them every time that they, don't stop exactly before the white line, or they turn right on red, but they didn't stop for that half second, at 2 o'clock in the morning when there's no traffic around, and we're sending them a ticket. So that's just some of my thoughts on this, and I agree. One other thing, real quick, before I was elected, I was also on CPAC, the Citizens Police Advisory Committee. One of the first meetings I went to, the former police chief was doing a presentation on the cameras. And right there on the presentation, it said, don't look at other studies, don't look at what you see on the internet. You don't need to look there. All you have to look is at my statistics. To me, that's a huge red flag. If you want somebody to do research on their own and look anywhere else at what people have found, there's a reason that hundreds of cities across the U.S. have gotten rid of these cameras, and we're only one of only 3, I think, left in Texas that still has them. That's an issue, and it's not a matter of when they're going to go away. I mean, or if they're going to go away. It's a matter of when they're going to go away.
So I would just say, I remembered it was also a disclaimer that this is not a revenue generator. Remember, that was something consistently.
Correct, but then we keep on hearing about all the revenue that's generated.
But we are getting a lot of revenue, so I just thought I'd add that. Councilor Roscoe, and then I have some comments as well.
Thank you, Mayor. As Mr. Miller had mentioned, some of our platform for running for city council was the red light cameras. And I remember being in the forum, Mr. Stevens and I were asked about the red light cameras, and I spoke against it. And I had indicated that there was a reason why it was outlawed. And I did, like Ms. Bolton, I did pay for 2 tickets. I said I couldn't possibly have done that. I saw myself in video, and yes, I did not make a complete stop, and since I broke the law, I did pay it. But in researching this, the first thing that comes up on mine says, do you really have to pay your Texas red light camera ticket? It tells you how to go about it, how not to pay for it, what your consequences are going to be. And I believe that's going to be the nature of the beast eventually, where they're not going to be able to enforce the red light camera tickets to the point where it's going to be more of a nuisance for the person that breaks or gets caught with a red light camera. My biggest beef is that I hate automated law enforcement. I don't want law enforcement to be by camera. I want the police to be there, to show force, to show they're there, to make themselves present there. I have always been against automated law enforcement. I think we're missing a great opportunity by not being there. There's people that may have a warrant out that may they give you an opportunity to stop them. I'm not saying that this is the reason to do it, but I don't believe in automated law enforcement. And like I said, during the forum, when I was asked about it, I spoke against it, and I'm still sticking to my guns.
Okay, thank you. I certainly appreciate it. Okay, I just have a few thoughts on this. Let me take my... Well, I can remember, I'm trying to think, it's Chief Wallace, and it was the council that we had, Councilor Jack Dean was on the council, and I want to say it was Crystal 2009, or
I think so.
something like that. And so Police Chief Wallace brought it to our attention, and the council at that time said no. And then we ended up, I think many of you were probably there, we went through the town hall meeting process, and that's how we garnered the support of the citizens. It was huge. I think it was not like 93% wanted the red light cameras, and that's how we proceeded back in 2018. And then in 2019, the legislature was looking at outlawing, which they ended up doing. But right before the deadline, the council approved a 20-year extension. So I guess it was just what you had said, Councilor Stephen. I hadn't really thought about it in that way. And you said, we're eventually going to have to get out of the red light cameras. You're right. In 18 years, anyway, that's the term that we still have left on our contract. So it's what you said. It's not a matter of if, it's when. Okay. Now, the contract. I just don't want, I want us to, I look forward to this executive session because a couple of months ago, we looked at wanting to repeal the home rule charter. And when we went into executive session and we did the research, we found out that we couldn't do it. So that's why I look forward to the contract, because I'm not sure, I've read the contract, I'm not a lawyer. My understanding is it has to be a mutual agreement, or I think there's something in there that says if our revenues do not cover our expenses, then we can get out of it that way. But again, I'm not sure what other options we have, and so I look forward to that, Roxy, to hear from you. We want to do this properly. We don't want to have a lawsuit in my book. So that's that. Economic impact. When Mr. Stevens told me he was going to bring this up, I went, what? I said, you know, we're making at least $400,000 to $500,000 a year extra for our public safety projects, which we put in cameras, lights, traffic lights, which are very, very expensive, and crosswalk improvements. So we've gotten a lot of benefit from this extra money that we split with the state at the end of the year. But it's also paying for 4 police officers from the red light camera money that are in our neighborhoods. So how are we going to, and the citizens, like that extra protection, how are we gonna figure that all out? So, again, we have a lot of hoops to jump through. And let me see what else I had. And then I'm just also wondering how our driving will be different if we remove the red light cameras. That was another thought I had. But what I'm excited about is that Mr. Perales, our new city manager, that's going to be coming on July the 5th from Arlington, he has experience in getting out of red light cameras. The city of Arlington had a contract, again, I don't know with whom, but they worked it out and they exited that contract. And we said, well, how did you cover the cost, the difference, the income? Well, the city of Arlington isn't the city of Leon Valley. They had a $110 million reserve fund, so they could cover the income loss. So we're gonna have to think creatively, out of the box, but I think we have time, and I think that let's not rush it. Let's get the citizen input. Let's, spend the time on seeing how we can creatively, and, because again, it's like you said, it's not if, it's when, because it is outlawed, so it might be 18 years, but how long will it take us to, like you say, get off this, the addiction? I think we have gotten used to that money to fund police officers and other projects. So it doesn't hurt for us to have an open dialogue that lays out the evidence for and against. And so the council with citizen input, I believe, will make eventually the best decision for Leon Valley. And I can tell you from just the citizen input, which we've gotten here through email, I would say the strong majority of the people are wanting to keep the red light cameras. So we'll read those in just a minute, but those are my comments, and I would like to hear from the people that are here in the chambers. So, okay, Mr. Mata, go ahead.
Eric Mata, Canterfield. I think the sad part of so many negative effects that we've seen from past leadership on staff is the willingness to mislead our community. A couple of days, I think over the weekend, I went back and watched I believe it was a town hall meeting, could have been Coffee with the Mayor from 2020, so a little more than a year from now. I believe it might have been January of 2019, and Helotes Echo had
they came? Okay.
had recorded it.
Thank you.
So it was I know at the time it it left an impact on me, and it was kind of startling to see it again, how the chief of police, our former chief of police, was willing to throw the previous chief of police under the bus and insinuate that he was not professional and didn't know what he was doing and was misreporting the accidents. I think that was really convenient, and we see how fervent he was about convincing people that were also on CPAC how important it was that we have this red light camera system based on the idea of security. And we felt, well, not security, but safety is what I meant. And we've come to find out that that is simply not the case. Absolutely not the case. He misled the community, misled citizens who serve on CPAC, who actually think what he gave them was facts. You know, just trusting he's the chief of police. And the funny thing about it is they've been outlawed, and yet we were relying on our chief of law enforcement. So I think the irony is, it's kind of funny, you know, in a sense we're kind of going against law, in a sense. But the police chief, who's supposed to enforce law, was interested in kind of undermining that law. So anyways, I really encourage you guys to move forward with it, just because we have a couple of letters here that might be overwhelmingly in favor of that. I spent a good amount of time at the polls back in November, and people overwhelmingly wanted to do away with the red light cameras. So I just want to say this poll is indicative of that as well. And let's do the right thing. Let's keep this community safe. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bowl? Thank you, and welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor Council. Evan Bold for Stokes Counterfield. First, I'm going to start off with reliability, cherry picking misinformation of the statistics. Councilman Stevens failed to mention that, he mentioned that they could be, the information could be filtered by where those accidents were put, the severity of those accidents. And that's kind of the whole point we were trying to get at with this camera system, is to prevent the severity of the accidents we've had over the last 40 plus years in our community. Prevent the T-bones, prevent blind people walking across the street from getting hit and feeling unsafe in their own city. And it strikes me as odd to say, yeah, you love your neighbor, they're your neighbor, but when your neighbors are not considerate of your safety, you must do what you need to do to ensure accountability is upheld. And that's really what it's all about. So, reliability of a poll on Nextdoor, you don't know who is voting. The 900 people that voted, we don't know that they're all Leon Valley residents. And as you just said, took the words right out of my mouth, Leon Valley residents who voiced their opinion on this matter are majorly in favor of this, as I am. But something that was also left out, yet again, is if you look in the contract, which I had the ability to read this morning, in the general terms and conditions, the agreement shall commence effective date and shall continue for a term of 10 years, beginning on the first day of the month following the first issued citation from the last installed camera system and the first set of approved camera systems installed. The agreement will extend for an additional consecutive 10 years upon approval of the city's governing body. However, the city or ATS may terminate this agreement at the expiration of any term, so technically we have 2 terms here, by providing written notice of its intent not to extend the agreement 120 days prior to the expiration of the then current term, which means 2029, which I believe would be the year, you give a 6-month notice of not to extend into that second 10-year notice, and there you go, you're out of it. 5 minutes to find this information. you know, it was a blind person who was a major proponent of having the system in our city to begin with. I've been able to take myself into accountability. I've not had to pay 4 out of the 5 tickets I've gotten. I've been able to sit down, and if impatience is the problem for ensuring proper accountability on yourself or the city, you have no right to say that it's a cumbersome process.
Okay,
Thank you.
very good, thank you. Yes, Mr. Martinez and then Mr. Miller.
Benny Martinez, Seneca. I favor removing the cameras. It seems like it causes more problems and more division in our city. Now, one thing, the previous city manager signed this 20-year extension without city council approval. She signed it as an April Fool's joke and let the city council know that she signed the contract 2 weeks later. And with the previous council in her back pocket, they agreed to the terms of it. But, you know, I think she was 100% wrong in signing this contract without city council approval. So that's all I have to say on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Miller. Okay, you're up, Mr. Miller. 3 minutes.
Mr. Ball used some big words. He used some really big words. I lost track of most of what he was saying, but it doesn't matter because I don't agree with any of it. Red light cameras. Some people are talking. Oh, the running thing, what you ran on. Look, if you ran on red light cameras, so be it. If you didn't run on red light cameras, so be it. Just, you know, fulfill your promises, whatever they are. Red light cameras, food trucks, whatever. I hear a lot of people saying, red light cameras, they cause more accidents. Red light cameras, they don't cause more accidents. They're safe, they're unsafe. How about this? I'm gonna play a different tune. And for everybody here that has any say-so in whether they get repealed or not. How about this? I'm gonna play a character, and this is gonna be you. And you're gonna decide whether you wanna be this person or not. Okay, you ready? Let's keep the red light cameras. Because we make a lot of money from people that are stupid enough to pay it. The sheep, the idiots. Let's take all their money, take all the money we can from them. Because they're idiots, right? They don't have to pay it. They're not obligated to pay a ticket. Nothing happens. Let's take their money anyway. Let's depend on their honesty and their goodwill. And folks who look at the video like Councilman Orozco and say, well, I ran it, I'm going to pay it because I'm an honest person. Or the person that feels guilty about it. Let's take their money. Right? Do you want to be that person? Or do you want to you want to fix something that, the previous city government stepped in a pile of crap. They stepped in a pile of crap. And they got it all over the place here. You guys can clean it up, or you can be that person that is going to continue to take money from the people that just don't know, or they're being honest, or they're just good people. Not like me, right? So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, yes. Cassie, you're next. Okay. Good evening and welcome.
So I feel really bad about the projection of
his views on what you guys must think if you don't wanna get rid of them, and I'm sorry that he thinks that you think people are idiots if they pay tickets. And I also have something to say about, when Kelly signed the contract, I was here for those meetings. I wasn't on council because I've never been on council, but she did say, because you guys are council and the way it was written, you could have said no. So yes, she did sign it, but yes, there was a way out of it. As to being in pocket, I don't care. But it happened, it's over. But mainly I wanted to say, with the information I've been given, and the way that I drive on the streets, I like the red light cameras. I can actually get through the light to turn left now because there aren't so many cars running it that only 2 cars get through at a time. That's nice. I believe one of the statistics that was given at some point was about the number of injury crashes, which is the important one that you want to reduce, the bad injuries and the deaths. If there are more accidents, and I would love to see the numbers on this, since Josh is all about the numbers, I also love to see the numbers. I'd like to see those separated out personally, because I don't really care if a lot of people are getting in fender benders because they're worried about getting a ticket. The person in front of them is worried about getting a ticket. I'm worried about if people are dying, if people are paralyzed, if people have a rotator cuff injury that they're now going to not be able to use their arm very well for the rest of their life. Or like me, herniated disc, and I'm gonna have to get surgery every 20 years for the rest of my life. If the products last that long like they're supposed to, they might not. And it's a scary surgery because it's your spine. Those are the things I'm worried about. And I would love to see the numbers on that to change my mind about this, because the statistics I have been shown, whether they were accurate or not, was that those kinds of things are reduced. And I am seeing the positive of being able to get to my house without having to go through 5 cycles of a light because people are running it. And I have friends that live in San Antonio but drive through Leon Valley who have been almost hit by people running lights when 2 or 3 cars have already gone through a left turn. Someone runs the light or doesn't stop fully on the right and they almost ran the side of somebody. And that has slowed down since we got the cameras also. So those are the things I personally am worried about as a citizen, with the information I've been given and the way that I have seen it in my own personal experience. I'm still for keeping them. But if someone can have those statistics and prove the other statistics that I did see wrong, I love that. Prove that statistics I saw wrong, because I'm about the numbers, and that's all I want to say.
Yeah, I think it's eventually, as I said, it's evidence-based, data, so reliable. Yes, Councilor Bradshaw.
Thank you, Mayor.
Uh-huh.
So a couple of things. If it was about safety, which is what it's being touted as, there are other solutions which other cities have come up with and implemented. This day and age with the technology, there are sensors that you could put at intersections that have high rates of crashes, and especially like Bandera Road, where if a car is approaching the intersection, the camera can see that a car is going to run it, and it will keep the other cars' lights, the other traffic lights red long enough for the car to clear the intersection, and then it will turn it. So instead of turning how they normally do on the timer, it says this car is going to run this intersection, everything's going to stay red, and that car runs it, and then it turns. And they have proven that those type of things have really made impacts on intersection safety. So if that's what it was about, then that's what we should look at implementing. And possibly with some of this red light camera money, we could implement a system like that. I'm just thinking right now as I'm talking, sorry. But if we implemented a system like that on our lights, then guess what? We would no longer have red light camera tickets. It would be very low. And then they would not be able to pay for themselves. And then the contract would go away. So just an option. If we put in traffic safety measures like that, which would prevent people from running red lights, hence no more red light tickets, then the cameras go away.
Do you know where that
I know where the study's at.
Okay,
The
has it been
equipment
implemented in any city?
in Austin.
In Austin?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so we can get some information from them.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other
Yes,
thing,
go
I was
right ahead.
also here, I was on the council as well as Councilor Martinez, when that contract was extended. And it actually, Mr. Rouse said that, the city manager, the council voted on it, and then the city manager signed the contract. That is not what happened. City manager signed the contract before the council voted on it. That's very suspicious. But the council, at that time, the former council, voted 3-2. Council Martinez and myself both voted against it to pass it. As you'll notice, none of those council members are any longer on the dais. So just
Excuse me,
an observation.
it was Counselor Edwards.
I don't think it was.
April of
No.
2019?
The extension, no,
The extension?
because he was off, I was on. We were never
okay.
serving together.
Oh,
But
no,
Ben
uh-uh.
Martinez was on
Oh.
at that time.
Okay. I was thinking of April of 2019, before you got in May. Okay, I had the wrong month, thank you. Yes, Counselor Stevens, you got the data for me, right?
Right, so I just showed Chris the data, if you filter. Honestly, if you have questions about this, shoot them to me. I'll give you the data. Because there's almost no filter you can attach that shows that the vehicle crashes have gone. Like there's no way to do it with TxDOT's data to make it appear like the red light cameras have been effective. Like you can sort by injury, you can sort, so I just pulled the Bandera Road corridor stuff, but I also wanted to make another clarification, and it's kind of related to yours, not really, and I've already let Roxy know this as well. So I went through the history of the red light cameras in Leon Valley. Let me take this off, it's probably a little better. And so I went through every single agenda for the last several meetings. So the initial red light camera ordinance was passed on August 1st, 2017 by the council, and it was an ordinance. There was no mention of cost, any company or vendor, the number of cameras, the placement, etc. There was no initial contract to approve, no vendor, nothing. There was, that's pretty much it. That was August 1st, 2017. On August 17th, 2017, the council approved a budget adjustment of $1.12 million to provide, quote, quote, provide funding to operate the City of Leon Valley impound lot and photographic traffic enforcement systems. Again, in this ordinance, as a budget adjustment, there was no mention of any vendor, no contract with any specific company that the council ever approved. Honestly, it seems like an insider deal to me. That's kind of what I portray it as. I probably could never prove that, but so the first and only time the council ever approved any document or contract between the City of Leon Valley and ATS, who later changed their name to Vera Mobility, was on May 7th, 2019. And that was after looking at, I looked at every single agenda personally, and so this contract that was entered into, the council actually never discussed a contract between ATS until it had already been executed and amended 2 times, and then the council approved it. And so, I don't know how there's like legal status for contracts, that involves a whole other legality, but it just goes to show, like, the council did not vote for ATS to take over collections. They approved the ordinance that allowed this extremely cumbersome process of contesting, proving your innocence if you get mailed a ticket. But other than that, and there was a budget adjustment for the initial cameras, 1.12 million, but as we know, the budget is a lot more than that. So, it's almost like, it's like a heroin addiction that you're like, I don't know if I can afford the methadone, should I stop taking the heroin? Like, it's an addiction, and it's that just because it's good and it feels good at the time doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And especially if it's detrimental to public safety, which the data shows. And again, I'm open if anybody has any other data, I'd be more than happy to see it.
Okay. Counselor Edwards, go ahead.
Who voted, do you have the record, who voted to accept this?
I can pull it up.
Yes, I'm sorry,
Sorry.
Counselor Bradshaw, go right ahead. I
May-
still think it was that
I'd
May
like to make
7th.
a correction.
Yeah.
And I think that I was confused. I think it was Dr. Edwards that voted against that.
Yes,
And Benny
Mr.
Martinez. It was after the election, but before the swearing, because of the recounts.
Right.
I wasn't on the dais yet, but I was here. And I voiced my opinion on that, but I think it was Dr. Edwards and Councilor Martinez that voted no to that extension. So that's why there's the confusion.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's what I had recalled, so. Okay, so now we do have, like, I think it's 11 letters, and Counselor Edwards, I think I gave two, three, you know, but we're all gonna read these letters into the record, and they will be made part of the record as well. So if you'll please continue, Counselor Edwards, on your 2 or 3 letters.
Okay, this is from Shirley Jonas.
Please use your mic.
Oh, sorry. This is from Shirley Jonas. Please cast your vote for the best interest of the citizens of Leon Valley, not your personal interest regarding the red light system. Records show that there have been less accidents since we approved the red light system, and I understand most people who are caught on the camera do not live in Leon Valley. So why do you want them removed? Let those who do not live in Leon Valley and get caught help pay for Leon Valley's safety. The lights are not costing the city any money, but are making money for related items for police and fire departments. Please vote for all citizens of Leon Valley, not just a few who have gotten on the red light camera. How many of the council have gotten caught? Shirley Jonas, Shadow Mist sub. Okay.
So
This,
I have not ever gotten a red light ticket, thank you.
well,
I'm not on wood, I might get one tonight, you know.
I have.
Okay.
And this is a rather long letter, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get
We'll
3
time
minutes.
it. We'll time it for 3 minutes, and you'll read up to 3 minutes, please.
This is from Paul Octavio. Dear Ms. Passalay, I'm writing this letter to you on the evening of April 5th, 2021. I would like this letter to be read at the mayor and council meeting on Tuesday evening, April 6th, 2021. I've heard that 2 of the items on the agenda for the city council are to remove the red light cameras and then to reduce the size of the Leon Valley Police Force. Both of these issues are misguided at best. The red light cameras have brought in much needed revenue to the city in the form of fewer accidents, safer streets, and additional officers on the streets. It's nice to see a police vehicle in the neighborhood on a regular basis now that the city has the manpower to do so. Prior to the added manpower, if I saw a police vehicle in Pavona Place, I assumed the officer was lost. That's because they were seen so rarely. I have never heard a citizen of any citizen call to defund the police unless they were part of a group of protesters who were intent on protecting criminals. Listening to the rhetoric from around the country, you would think the general consensus is to defund police departments. That is not the case. The vast majority of citizens like to know they can call 911 and get a response. If the police are defunded, who do I call? The city council? I'm sure they'll all come running. I have had trouble trying to contact LVPD on the non-emergency line. Most recently during the power outage, ever since our 911 call center was moved to Bexar County. Some of the money from these red light cameras could be used to reinstate our call center so we can once again contact our own police. Speaking of the red light cameras, the city has a long-term contract, apparently some 20 years, with the company monitoring the cameras. At the current time, these cameras cost the city nothing and bring in revenue which can only be used for public safety. That means that our police department can hire more officers to protect the citizens of Leon Valley, update their equipment, have better radio communication, and essentially protect the residents of Leon Valley and themselves. Reducing the LVPD manpower puts our officers' lives in even more danger than they already face daily. The revenue from the traffic cameras means our police don't have to depend on San Antonio for backup, which could take too much time and get our officers injured or killed. To me, as a retired police sergeant, this is not acceptable. Another consideration is how much would breaking this lengthy contract cost the taxpayers of Leon Valley, because I know the money to break the contract is not coming out of the pockets of the city council. Everything they do or spend money on has a direct effect on the city taxpayers.
That's 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councilor Stevens. And I don't know where the issue of defunding the police, but that hasn't been on any agenda item topic. I just wanted to make that point. Thank you. Councilor
Yeah.
Stevens?
It's fascinating how people have been misled. I feel like almost every comment, it's like factually incorrect based on the data, which anybody can look up online or email me and I'll send it to you. Bill Hennig, leave the cameras as they are. Anyone who is observant can tell they are doing more good than harm. Matt Hody, when I saw the agenda item on the topic of declaring intent to phase out red light cameras, I was bewildered. Why? These currently installed cameras are not illegal, but running a red light is most definitely illegal. The system was put in as a result of the Citizens Police Advisory Committee and the former police chief's desire to reduce the number of red light running incidents and associated wrecks. And you know what? It is working, despite the ridiculous claims by naysayers that it isn't. The state of Texas, the camera system company, and the city of Leon Valley each receive a percentage of the fines collected. That portion of funds that Leon Valley receives can only be used for public safety related expenses. It is not a money-making scheme to fill the city's coffers. The resolution on this subject found in the agenda packet begins with, bolded, whereas the City Council of Leon Valley believes the #1 priority of Leon Valley city government is to ensure the safety of its citizens and the public. Phasing out the red light cameras seems like the opposite of ensuring the safety of Leon Valley citizens and the public. Furthermore, whomever authored this resolution accidentally on purpose left out an important fact. It should have read, whereas existing red light systems currently under contract are completely legal despite the passing of House Bill 1631. If you are unsure of this, check with State Representative Ray Lopez. He is familiar with the subject. And some final thoughts. If you eliminate the camera system, what are you going to tell the parent of someone laid up in the hospital after their car was T-boned by a red light runner on Bandera and Seneca? How will you feel after a pedestrian crossing Grissom Road is run over by a driver rushing through a red light to turn left from Bandera? Please think about public safety, not just what you want.
Okay.
We are.
That was your 2 letters, right? Okay. I'll just continue. We'll just go around. This is from Loretta Hody. I am strongly in favor of our red light camera system. Before they were installed, traveling on Bandera Road was even more of an ordeal. Cars were moving at top speed, trying to beat the next light. Cynics claim that the red light cameras cause more rear-end accidents. Even if that were true, I say T-bone accidents caused by speeding red light runners are a lot more dangerous. Bandera Road is our access road to everywhere. Please keep it as safe as possible for everyone. Safety first. Loretta Hody, Leon Valley. And next, it's from Ray and Sharon Hendricks on 8th Drive, or 8th Street. Mayor Riley and City Council members, we are in favor of continuing the red light camera program. We feel that it has increased the safety and decreased accidents on Bandera Road while increasing revenue for the city. Thank you. Go ahead.
Dear Council, in spite of my receiving 2 tickets in the same corner from turning right without coming to a full stop, I fully support the red light camera, and guess what? I no longer take a right on that corner without stopping. Please consider the safety of all citizens and maintain a red light cameras light. Signed, Michelle Alonso, Leon Valley Park Commissioner. And this is a long one too, so I'll try to read it real fast so we can get on with it.
Yeah, we'll read it for 3 minutes.
This is from Elizabeth Malloy. I am strongly opposed to phasing out the red light camera program in Leon Valley. The program does not affect any drivers who obey the speed limits. If you plan on speeding through our city, I hope it does affect you. We also have a contract. I am really irritated and disappointed this council seems to have no qualms in considering the breaking of the contract. This is not representative of the ethics held by Leon Valley voters and residents. The red light cameras have served to slow down those driving through our city and have served to educate those who work and live in our city. If you are behind the wheel, follow the law and follow the speed limits, and you will be identified and you will pay a fine. I do agree that it's a shame that we have to reach this point where light cameras are needed to address the unlawful driving we have seen and experienced in our city. But we reached to the point that red light cameras have served as a deterrent. Persons who are serving on the council but never lived in Leon Valley prior to the implementation of the red light camera program cannot speak with any knowledge or credibility before and after the red light camera issue. The added advantage we have gained by having the wherewithal to hire some more Leon Valley police has also been a major benefit for our city, its residents and its businesses. Sadly, it appears that we have persons serving on city council who are opposed to keeping our city safe and are opposing a continuing Leon Valley reputation. Do not speed in Leon Valley. When my company, General Homes, and I were considering building a neighborhood in Leon Valley, we considered how well Leon Valley is living up to the responsibilities mandated by the state of Texas. We were particularly impressed by the Pride Leon Valley show in living up to the responsibilities of providing a police force to protect its people and business. The support of the council had its force, and the assumptions that support would be ongoing was extremely instrumental in our decisions to come to Leon Valley and build the neighborhood of Pavona Place. I am very sure business continue to factor the local police department, its relationship with the city council in making decisions whether or not to move the business to Leon Valley. This council is going down the wrong road with their intention to eliminate the red light program and their determination to degrade and diminish the Leon Valley police. Leon Valley, Ms. Elizabeth Malloy, Pavona Place.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman Orozco. Councilman Bradshaw.
Thank you, Mayor. Please stop and think about what you are doing. The red light cameras have proven to be an asset to the city of Leon Valley. Not only have they reduced the number of accidents on Bandera Road, mostly involving persons who are traveling through Leon Valley, allowing our police and fire department to be free to respond to Leon Valley citizens' issues. In addition, the funds obtained from the tickets have been used to enhance the safety of crosswalks, stop signs, and street signs, all public safety concerns. More importantly, the funds have been used to purchase some major safety equipment such as the jaws of life for the fire department. None of these improvements in equipment cost the city and taxpayers a cent. Would you want to rid the city of red light cameras when they have proven to be beneficial? It seems that a majority of the council is leading this charge because it is a program of the police department. They jumped on the bandwagon of the auditors against the police department and anything that is connected to them. This is not a majority of citizens' view. It is the majority of the councils who are not willing to actually consider the benefits of the cameras or the desire of the majority of the citizens. You are ruling without thought, without long-term consideration, without weighing the benefits, and without considering the taxpayers. When you say, quote, "We are doing what the citizens want," I ask you, how many? A majority? A few? Can you list names? The response would be that you, the council, are acting on your wishes, not the citizens. It is evident that you do not give a flip about the citizens. This city is headed for bankruptcy, anarchy, and ruin. That's from recalled Councilor Donna Charles. The next one's from Cindy Henley. I've been a lifelong resident of Leon Valley. I don't have a problem with the red light cameras. I think the city should keep them. Also, I have a concern regarding the walking, biking trail that will be in the drainage ditch that runs along El Verde. When it was first brought up, we were told the path would be in the base of the ditch. Now, there are stakes marked more towards the top. I, along with many of my neighbors, would prefer the path to be in the base. Otherwise, people walking, jogging, will get out of their boundaries and into my property. I'm concerned about people walking a dog won't be respectful of my property. I'm requesting that the mayor, along with the council, come to our street and meet with citizens to discuss a plan that will work for all citizens. Thank you, Cindy Henley.
Okay, thank you.
And then I got one more from Billy Ford. I've heard that Leon Valley might be considering discontinuing photo enforced ticketing. Although I don't particularly care for them, I think they have probably reduced wrecks at intersections because people tend to try to beat the light. Traffic in the town is extremely frustrating, and that's part of the reason people try to get out of it as quickly as possible. thus running lights if they think they can make it. Why not allow that flyover for people headed to and from work and ease up the highway for people who want to shop here without being totally frustrated by the time they get here and then have to fight their way out again when they leave? I think that would alleviate a lot of the problems in that stretch of Leon Valley. Some people take residential streets just to miss the mess on SH 16. This is probably causing headaches for people living on those streets where their kids are playing outside. Just letting you know my opinion of the traffic situation. Maybe the law enforcement could spend some time on graffiti and crime that seems to be on the rise.
Okay.
Yeah, we should know where that one.
I'm sorry?
You should know where that one doesn't state where he lives.
Oh, they didn't say where they live yet.
Okay, so we're learning about that now, so. Okay, so I believe we've made I think everybody's had their discussion and input. So I believe, Mr. Stevens, you said you had a motion at the end of the discussion.
Yeah, so I'll start by motioning that we have an executive session on April 20th at 5:30 p.m. Is that the executive session you were planning on?
No, I have to do other items, but it doesn't matter, just the executive session's at 5:30.
Okay, so that we motion to have executive session on April 20th at 5:30 and include discussion on this resolution.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Counselor Stevens and a second by Counselor Bradshaw to set an executive session to discuss the contract of the red light cameras at the next city council meeting, April 20th, 2021 at 5:30. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? The motion does carry unanimously. Okay, due to the time, which is...
I have another motion.
Oh, you have another motion? Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I didn't...
So then, I'll motion that we approve this resolution, stating the intent to remove photographic traffic signal enforcement systems as provided in the packet and presented on the screen.
And I'll second that one as well.
All right, we have a motion by Counselor Stevens and a second by Counselor Bradshaw to pass the resolution of the City Council expressing intent to remove photographic traffic signal enforcement systems as per the resolution in front of us. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Mayor, I have one question.
Yes, you sure did. Go right ahead.
Sorry, the one question is, with this intent, can this serve as notice to the red light camera company, the written notice that's required? I don't know if the city attorney's on the line.
She's here, but I believe that's what we'll discuss in executive session, is my understanding, and she's shaking her head. So we'll have to talk about it on the 20th of April. Okay? Thank you for that.
Thank you. That was.
You bet. I appreciate that. So with that said, then, if we could please all vote one way or the other. All those in favor of this resolution, vote aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Nay? The resolution of intent passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. All right, so,
Mayor,
yes, you sure may.
I know it's past 10 o'clock, it's almost 11 actually, but I would like to make a motion that we suspend the rules of decorum that ask us to take no action after 10 o'clock and at least take 10.5 because it takes 2 reads, and I understand that the owner of that is 10.5 is.
10.5 does not say 2 reads,
No,
so,
but it is the waiver of that fee for that complex.
okay.
And so my understanding from council is that they want to take up not having that taken out of the ordinance. And so if that's going to be the direction to staff, we need to have 2 reads.
Then we
for
need
that.
2 reads, okay. I appreciate that, I didn't know that. I mean, I knew that there was some
And then
inkling
he's
of
waiting
that.
on this one, so if you're gonna give the reduction, then we need the reduction. I don't see Brandon here, but I can give the presentation.
Okay, Counselor Bradshaw is making a motion to suspend the rules to
I'll
allow
second.
10.5 to be heard. because it's a time-sensitive issue. There's a second by Counselor
And I'll
Stevens.
second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? I know y'all love to stay late. The motion does pass. All right, Mr. Milan, we did have a motion and a second to move up 10.5 because our understanding is it needs 2 reads.
Well,
And
this
so-
one doesn't need, this item doesn't need 2 reads. Right, so y'all are gonna look at waiving these fees, or reducing these fees for this person, but y'all are looking at removing that item from the actual ordinance, and then that would require 2 reads. And so we don't have direction on this item tonight, and I can't put it on for the 4/20 to remove the item, and then again for the second meeting in May, so we can remove that item from the ordinance.
Yeah, this item tonight is a variance from the city's fee schedule, and all that requires is a resolution from you guys. So that's one read. And we do have a customer that's waiting, so yeah, I recommend that you consider the resolution tonight so we can accommodate this individual, and then we can change the code for future people.
Okay, so we are gonna go ahead with 10.5 first read.
Correct.
Okay, that's
Well, we'll
There's
do,
only 1 read of this.
only 1 read.
yeah,
It's just a resolution.
tonight's it.
Okay, all
But
right.
he's waiting on this.
But he's waiting.
Yeah, he's been patient.
All right, we want to accommodate the business owner. Okay, very good. If you'll please proceed.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So the applicant or the requester on this one, his name is Mr. Robert Bowe. He's the president of JFB Construction. He represents the property owners at 5405 and 5504 Bandera Road. And so what his request is so the ownership of these properties has changed. And so in the International Business Code, it specifies several things that have to be on a CO, you know, what the land use is, what the classification is, who the business is, and who the owner of the premises is. And so that's what we put on a CO. And so in 2018, we changed the code. I brought that amendment to you guys personally, so I'll take responsibility for that. So this is one of the reasons why you need the variance, is because of an amendment that I brought to y'all. Because at that point in time, we need to change the CO. So anytime the underlying business owner changes, we have to change the CO, recertify it. So if the city is releasing a document and certifying that the premises is safe, then that potentially means some liability to us. And so why I brought that to y'all was to add that to the different criteria that initiates a new certificate of occupancy. And what that does is that allows us the ability at that point in time to go into the facility and have the fire marshal go in there and the building official and make sure it's safe for the public still. Because who knows how much time has transpired since the ownership changed. And so that was the reason for doing that back then. And so it works fine, you know, if it's just like one business. Okay, yeah, it's been 15 years, the ownership changed, $125, you get your new CO with the new ownership on there, and we get to make sure the place is still safe. In this case, these 2 facilities, I can't remember, there's like tons of suites in there, and so it was gonna come to like $2,500, and it's not like the fire marshal and the building inspector are gonna have to go down there, you know, 60 different times. They're gonna go down, they're gonna look at each building at the same time. So Mr. Bowe came in, he's like, I've got a problem with this. I felt like, hey, you know what, you can't get everything right in the code. I think you're right. So his proposal was, how about you just charge me $125 for each building? And I was like, that's a great idea. I wish I could do that myself, but I can't. I need to take it to council. So here we are tonight. So instead of charging them $125 for each tenant suite, for each new certificate of occupancy piece of paper, which does have an inspection associated, asking y'all to waive the code, waive the fees, and with any variance, you don't just waive the requirement, you replace it with something. So what Mr. Bowe's asking for, and I think is a great idea, is just through the resolution, just charge them $125 per building. There's 7 buildings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There you go. They've got this thing that looks like it's from Star Wars, and then you've got those other ones there. And so yeah, $125 per building. You know, they go in each one. It'll take a little bit of time for each one. And so that's his request. I think it's a great idea, and of course y'all have the final say in that. So happy to take any questions.
Okay, all right. Are there any questions from Mr. Milan on this agenda item? So it's $125 for, so it's $250 total.
It'd be $750, or no? No, I'm sorry.
Oh, so it's $125 per building. See, I was looking at that big clump and that big clump,
Yeah,
but,
I hope I didn't get
okay,
the math
so it's
wrong.
$125 per building, okay.
Right.
All right, sounds good. Yes, Counselor Stevens.
So I had emailed, I think you and Crystal and Brandon about this after I initially looked at it. And I think this requires an ordinance change. This is the ownership of the company. So like this is this is a business property that encompasses a bunch of businesses, like a business park, like a strip center. You know, there's so many different types of complexes. None of the businesses have changed. None of them have changed structure. None of them have changed ownership. The only thing is the capital owner, the investor of the property has changed. In San Antonio, unless it meets certain conditions, they don't even force you to get a new certificate of occupancy. So I think that we shouldn't even require a new certificate of occupancy. I feel strongly about this because this is completely the opposite of business friendly, even if we charge them $150 for each building. And the thing is, like most of the properties, I think probably almost all of them in Leon Valley, they're all triple net properties, meaning any expenses that are incurred get passed down to the small business owners. And it's not like the small business owners in these complexes changed a single thing about their operations, but for what, because then one investor decided to sell to another investor, and who knows, maybe it'll change again next year or the next year after that. Like these types of properties, especially in the market conditions with real estate around here, these types of properties are very susceptible to frequently changing capital ownership, investor ownership. Sometimes these investors will never ever come to San Antonio to look at this property. They simply are their firm that does this all over the United States all the time. And so to charge them a certificate of occupancy, like when a new business comes into this establishment, they're already required to get a new certificate of occupancy for their individual suite, which would be everything, the suite, anything on the door, the frame, the business frame. If there's anything that's unsatisfactory, they have to correct it at that point. So I just, this, in my opinion, we need to change the whole ordinance to mimic San Antonio's, because that's our true competition. Any of these businesses have the opportunity to invest in San Antonio. Any of the small businesses that will actually be footing even a $125 bill could easily go into San Antonio. And so that's my position on it. There's no, I mean, yeah, we can go and inspect the property anyways at any point. Like there's nothing imminent. There's just no point of doing this. San Antonio doesn't do this when properties change ownership unless they meet 4 criteria, and I emailed that to Brandon and Crystal, and I thought that was a great policy to mimic because they identified specific types of businesses that it would make more sense to actually do this, like an alcohol business. Like if a ownership of a business that sells alcohol as their primary source of revenue changes, they recommend doing it, because there's other permits and stuff they want to check at that point. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, so you bring up a good point, maybe it makes sense on some businesses instead of others. So, when you sent the email, thanks for sending the email in advance. I had to kind of rack my brain too, because, we do this stuff and a year and a half goes by and you have to remember, like, why did I do this in the first place? I knew you guys were gonna ask about it, and I want to have a good background on it, because definitely didn't do it to be business unfriendly. Like I said, it's hard to sometimes see the whole gamut of things that will affect, and one of the big reasons why we did this was apartment complexes. And so just like our big commercial business parks, apartment complexes change hands. And so apartment complexes, particularly some of the ones we have here in Leon Valley, can have some issues. And so we were saying, okay, they're gonna need new COs. Each one of their buildings gets new COs. And fire department does go out like every 6 months, I think, and do an inspection, but building official doesn't go out every 6 months. The fire department's looking at one set of things. The fire chief is not looking at whether or not those stairs that go up to the 3rd floor have risers that are about to come loose and things like that. So a big reason why we did this was really the apartment complexes and making sure those things are safe and give us a chance. And so again, one of those things, you got an intent on it, and then somebody comes in with something like this, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's fair to give you the variance. So thanks for bringing that up.
But what I hear you say is you're arguing no fee, and you're arguing $125 per building, right? Is that, is that the difference? I mean, I'm just wanting to.
So, yeah, this is a principle issue for me. It's not, it's a principle
All right.
thing. The dollars,
Just wanted clarification.
this company is probably has like, like $100 million in their account. It's not a money thing. This will get passed down to the small businesses for sure. Both of these are triple net properties, but it's a principle, and it's that San Antonio is doing it one way. I think that we should rewrite our ordinance and because the apartments, that makes sense to me. And so you would, especially because apartments are hard to access, and so you would want to have an opportunity for a business or a building inspector, my bad, and a fire inspector to go through these properties when they change ownership. Businesses, they're accessible Monday through Friday, and so fire marshal, whatever, can always go into these buildings and around them and identify problems. There's no reason to even go through this certificate of occupancy. Literally, all that we're doing, and I meant to bring a certificate of occupancy tonight, but all that we're doing is changing, it says property owner, and we're changing the name. That's like the only thing we're doing. And so to charge for that, and I guess we're adding an inspection, but we can always go to inspections. So I would advocate for, and this is my opinion, waiving all the fees, going back to the drawing table, kind of trying to mimic San Antonio, their ordinance with the certain exceptions, add apartments to it, and maybe any other logical types of businesses that kind of make sense for us to,
Yeah, definitely, I can prepare that ordinance. And for apartments, something we could think about doing is rental registration. I'm just kidding.
I thought we just got rid of that tonight. Yes.
I know, I was like, I thought
Counselor
you were
Edwards.
laughing at that. I was like, oh my God.
Counselor
So,
Edwards.
Mayor,
Oh, hang on just a second, Mr. Hefner, I've got Counselor Edwards, he's speaking next, and then you can speak after him.
What are
Thank
you
you.
suggesting we do tonight? Waive the fees and then take it back to staff to redo
To
the
come up with a
ordinance?
different ordinance is what I thought he said.
Let me actually, I'll read you the San Antonio's thing. So change of ownership. When a change of, so this is what this building's going through, or actually they went through it January of 2019. You point that out, but change of ownership. When a change of ownership, I don't know if both business properties, I know one of them, sorry. When a change of ownership of an existing building or tenant space within a building occurs and the use group classification remains the same and the occupancy classification and or proposed use does not fall into one of the classifications above, which is for, group living, alcohol sales, I think food establishment, there's one other, above or is not a boarding home, an application for a certificate of occupancy is not required. If so desired, the new owner may request a copy of the existing certificate of occupancy, which costs $5 from the city of San Antonio, or they may request a name change on the existing certificate of occupancy, which costs $50 from the city of San Antonio. The fee schedule contains those fees. If you remodel the space, the department will automatically issue a new certificate of occupancy if you indicated on your commercial remodel permit application that you would like a new certificate of occupancy. So if they're remodeling, it's a different story and it fits into a different structure. But if there's no changes other than the investment firm or the ownership of the company, then so it's their prerogative, really.
Counselor Hefner, Counselor Edwards has a follow-up, and then I'll call on you. Yes, sir, go ahead.
I mean, it sounds like we have to redo the ordinance, but what do you want us to do tonight? Waive the fees? Is that, okay?
Okay, thank you. Counselor Hefner.
Yeah, so I just want to comment on a couple things that I heard. I think Mr. Stevens makes a good point around, sorry, Crystal, put them.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
I'm getting feedback from Crystal being off mute.
Oh, okay.
I can't be off mute, that's how you hear the council.
Oh. All right, let me try and do this without my headset on.
No, we can't hear you now. We can't hear you now, Mr. Hefner. Counselor Hefner, we cannot hear you. He can't hear me either, right? So he's talking. Can somebody text him? Okay, tell him we cannot hear a word he's saying.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. We could not hear you before. Thank you. Go ahead.
So, we have economies of scale, or does San Antonio have economies of scale that we don't have, on this issue, that allows their ordinances to be the way that Mr. Stevens read. And then the second comment is, the comparison of this to an apartment complex, to me, that's a red herring, right? An apartment complex is a residential zoning. This is a commercial zoning. I think that if we wanted to make a change to this ordinance, we could do so relatively easily, as those zones are handled very, very differently. So I'm supportive of making this one-off fee change tonight and then addressing the ordinance at a next read.
Okay. Counselor Roscoe, do you have anything? Just waiting for the motion. Counselor Bradshaw, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was fine with the way it was written, but, you think about it, it's $875, so I'm fine with waiving it as well.
Okay. All right, so, Mr. Stevens, do you want to make a motion? We have a motion to adopt this resolution, right? Waiving the fees, is that it?
The fees, and I'm gonna bring back to y'all an amendment that is,
Okay.
similar to what Mr. Stevens is describing, and offline I can email him and kind of get his feedback from it before we come back.
Yeah, I'll participate in the amendment. I'm gonna abstain from this vote, so if you could make the motion.
Oh, that's a good point,
Okay.
yeah, because Mr. Stevens is the owner of one of these businesses. So I'll make the motion that we adopt a resolution to waive the fees for this change of ownership.
Okay. We have a motion by Counselor Bradshaw and a second by Counselor Edwards to adopt this resolution waiving the fees as discussed. I don't believe you said and asked staff to bring us back a new ordinance.
Well.
I think you got that direction, so.
Direction, yeah.
Okay, so we'll just do the resolution waiving the fees. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And an abstention. Okay, so the motion carries 4 ayes and 1 abstention. All right. So, now it's 11, oh, yes, ma'am.
Mayor, would it be possible to continue the rest of these items instead of moving them to the 4:20 meeting? Can you continue them
It's up to
tomorrow?
the council.
After the, the only reason I say that is because I know that, the BOA is behind on their training, and Mr. Cox has a project that he really needs the economic and community development advisory committee to meet on, and he has not been able to get a quorum together, so he needs those vacancies filled.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the council, it's 11 o'clock, it's past the rules.
No, I'm asking to continue it tomorrow after the
Oh,
executive session.
tomorrow, I'm
Yes.
sorry. See, I'm so tired, I didn't hear that. Thank you so much. Can we add that? Because it's a 24-hour thing, right?
Right.
Okay, all right, so we need a motion to do that? Okay, that's a great idea, thank you. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so I'll make a motion to move items
10.6,
10.6, 7, 8, and 9
Uh-huh.
to tomorrow night's meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Counselor Bradshaw and a second by Counselor Stevens to move remaining agenda items 10.6, 7, 8, and 9 to tomorrow's city council meeting, which is Wednesday, April the 7th.
And Robert E. Stevens, city attorney, that would be to continue the agenda items to occur tomorrow after the
Okay.
already posted meeting.
All right, to continue that agenda items that were already posted so that we're within the rules. Okay, very good. Uh-huh. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion does carry. That was a great suggestion. Thank you. I really appreciate that. All right. Citizens to be heard, agenda item number 11. Do we have any citizens in the chambers, or I don't believe we have any other citizens to be heard? Okay, and request for members of city council to add items to future agenda. I emailed Crystal, I think it was yesterday. We need to have a presentation as per, I think one of the council members requested at last city council meeting for a presentation of the Northwest Chamber of Commerce. And then also I've asked for an update on the opioid litigation. Again, no rush, I just don't want to forget about it, because really? Well, uh-huh. Yeah. Well, it's because the main lawyer is no longer there, so, okay, well, we'll just keep it on the radar, and whenever we can get some information, we will. Yes, ma'am.
And on the chamber item, the council had asked Mr. Martinez to coordinate that presentation with the chamber.
Okay, he had
So I had
emailed me and
that.
asked me when, and so I just said, how about April 20th?
Okay.
So if that's,
They're fine with that.
if that's okay, because I mean, you just said when are we gonna do it, might as well do it sooner rather than later, okay? All right, any other requests for, your sign ordinance?
Sign ordinance,
Yes,
I
we're
just
gonna,
wanted an updated list.
sign ordinance, we've got that, and, we have a few other straggling things that we didn't, that we postponed, because this agenda was very long. So we will do that, Councilor Roscoe, thanks for your patience. Okay, and so if there's no objection, we move to adjourn, today's meeting, which is, April the 6th, 2021 at approximately 11:05. Good evening.
10 seconds.
Well, I think I didn't bang it, but okay.
Just 10 seconds.
10 sec, what do y'all, I mean, I want my colleagues to, is that all right with y'all? Okay.
I'm not even gonna stand up. It's not a matter of.
No, you've got to, because we've
Oh,
got it on the,
okay.
we've got it on the thing, so.
Jack Miller, San Antonio. I apologize for my phone going off earlier. That is totally against anything I wanted to do. That was my first time live streaming, and I did not set it to silent. I did set it to silent, but I didn't shut it off. All right, guys, that was it. The meeting is over. The meeting is over. Yeah. The meeting is over. I just extended an apology to the council because my phone was going off earlier and it kind of disrupted the meeting a little bit. So, because I didn't take out my emergency backpack. Oh, yeah, backpack. Y'all wanted to see what's in the backpack? Hey, are y'all ready? We got the big old strap on. And then I also have my blue Glock. And then last but not least, can you see now? Hold on, let me turn it off. Yeah. That's a butt plug, and then it got the schlong. Anyway, that's what they had to experience when they came in. And they actually did a good job. So they did a great job. So let me get this on the gimbal again. Hold on, guys. Calm down. Thank you. Oh, you too. Thank you. Don't worry. The next time I stream, I'll be on point. All right, guys. I'm just getting some stuff ready. Hey, check with me when you're leaving. 'Cause I wanna show you what the police officers found in my bag today when I came in.
Oh, God.
They did good though. They did really good. Bye, folks.
Good night.
Bye. See, oh, I can go out that door. I forgot.
Yeah, they didn't do that. Their building is really screwed up.
I thought I paid the water bill when I didn't, I was like, well, we had a pipe break, so I thought. $200. And I thought it was because I thought it was because we had a pipe break.
I don't think so. It's not, because Sauce went back 1 year.
Oh,
They
did
charged
they?
us for whatever we paid in February of 2019.
Oh, okay. Instead of the overcharge for all the water. That's fair. It is, I just, I looked at it and I'm like, this kind of water, why is my water bill $200? What it was, the money that I had paid the bill, but it wasn't, I guess the statements went out before the bill was taken off. My mistake. You gentlemen have a word.
Hey, when I came in today, they did really well. You know what they, I know. Okay, you heard about it? Because I remember you did that back in school, but. Yes. And I was surprised too. He's not that. Oh, I think he's looking at, he did the right thing. It's not easy to see, you're like, what the hell? You can't totally off guard. Somebody else will know. I wanted to inspect the contraband, but hey. All right, guys, stay out there. Oh, no, tomorrow.
Ooh, man.
Come on, honey.
Take that off. We're gonna go eat.
I don't know. Are you going?
Yeah, I'd like to. Where did Eric go? He took off fast. All right, guys, let's see here. Backpack video. I already showed y'all what was in the backpack. Somebody fill these folks in on what's in the backpack. I can't keep opening it up. I want to smoke.
Normally I'd say let's go, but once she wants to get home.
Oh, okay, guys, this is what's going on. I think I'll have to work out the bugs. I'm sorry there's no video, but apparently, I guess when my battery gets so low, it shuts off the video. I'll figure it out. Thank y'all for watching. Hopefully next time I'll have a non-stop live stream without all this black video and stuff like that. But in my backpack, I had my fake Glock, a dildo, and a butt plug, a huge one. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Y'all have a good night.